Good evening and welcome to the school committee meeting this evening, Monday, May the 9th. This meeting is being recorded for LCTV, being aired live, and being live streamed through longmeadow.org. This meeting was also posted as required by open meeting laws. Let us begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Longmeadow School Committee maintains educational policies that foster continuous improvement by challenging and supporting all children in a safe and caring learning environment, enabling them to reach their highest potential and to become productive citizens. Through effective communication and positive relationships, the Longmeadow School Committee will make informed decisions in the best interest of the students, the schools, and the Longmeadow community. This evening, I'd like to welcome Wolf Swamp Road School, who will be presenting for us this evening. So I will let Dr. Neil Guile begin and introduce his students.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having us this evening. Gentlemen, I mean, look at who showed up for us tonight. It doesn't get any better than this. Well, maybe it does. I mean, we both got to meet Gronk today. Is that my understanding, apparently? Yeah. Yeah, it was a special day in East Longmeadow as well, I guess. We're just waiting for technology, and then we'll get started.
Can we go back to where Gronk was?
8:15.
8:15? Yeah, that's what I was...
Dunkin' Donuts.
Wow.
That's where we are.
I don't know. You want to tell them what was the occasion? I really have no idea.
It was after my music lessons. He was shooting a video at DC Fitness, and then he went to East Longmeadow High School.
Wow.
Very cool.
I gotta start going back to Donna.
So, in all seriousness, it's my pleasure and privilege to introduce Alexei Petrov and Corwin Martin, who are going to talk to you folks this evening about all things caring at Wolf Swamp Road School. And I will turn it over to these wonderful gentlemen.
So,
Yeah, let's do it.
cooperation. We share and work as a team to solve problems and get things done in a friendly way.
Assertion. We use friendly words and actions when necessary to speak up for what is right and to stay safe.
Responsibility. We take ownership of our actions and decisions. We choose to do the right thing.
Empathy. We imagine how someone else must be feeling.
Self-control. We do the right thing even when it is hard or no one is watching. We are trustworthy. Here are the ways in which we care.
Donate to Open Pantry.
Donate box tops to purchase school items.
Donate Coats for Kids.
Donate holiday basket for kids.
Donate toys to Shriners.
Donate double snack.
Donate to school through PTA.
Raise jump rope for Heart Association.
Raise St. Youth Mathathon.
School fundraiser, recycle trash.
So I asked the gentleman why is CARE so important at Wolf Swamp Road School, and their quotes are below. Corin, would you want to share yours?
I said it is about good vibes, not bad vibes.
I said we cooperate with others and work as a team.
Very cool. And I would just add that, and I probably should have said this at the beginning of the presentation, but those pictures came straight out of Wolf Swamp Road School. Those are all students in our school. Through the wonderful talents of our parents, Dorothy Martin, Ivy Pohl, Ellie Petrov, who did the graphic designs of those posters. We've been working on this project for some time now, with the end goal being that those pictures that you saw will be displayed throughout the school, and they'll be changed periodically. We'll have enough photos of all of the boys and girls to keep things fresh, if you will. And I'd be remiss if I did not recognize Schwartz, oh my goodness, their company, the Schwartz family, who does the framing. I'm drawing a blank. Fusion, thank you. Fusion Inc. and the PTA for their ongoing support, and obviously the boys and girls who make this all happen. So, anything else we'd want to say? Any questions, maybe?
Does your group meet like every month and talk about projects, or how do you,
Not really.
how do you know what to do? Where do the ideas come from?
I think from our morning meetings. Right?
Oh yeah, from our morning meetings at school.
Okay, in your classroom?
Yeah.
Great.
You did a wonderful job presenting. Thank you very much. Were you nervous?
Kinda.
The group to do it, but you did a wonderful job. We're delighted to hear all the great things happening at Wolf Swamp. I know that you've spent the full year focused on this, so this slideshow is fantastic. It really gives us a good synopsis of what's happening. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, boys. You did a great job.
Go Patriots.
Go, Gron.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
SIS, yes. We'd like to invite Tracy O'Gara and Donna Lyons to come forward, please, and sit at the microphone. Tracy here yet? She's not. Okay. Donna, this is Donna Lyons, who is in charge of guidance and guidance counselor at Long Meadow High School. Donna tonight is the recipient, along with Tracy O'Gara, of the School Improvement Specialist Award. This is given to staff that take a lot of courses, a lot of after-school study to commit to the district goals, and then become a leader on the staff. So Donna, we're delighted that you did this. We also would like to commend you on your outstanding work in the area of guidance. We have one of the strongest high school departments in terms of guidance in the state, and that's thanks to your leadership. So thank you for doing this, and thank you for all that you do for us.
Thank you.
So, correspondence?
We have a memo from Mr. Donald Jarvis of the Lower Pioneer Valley Career and Technical Education Center regarding the most improved vocational students in 2016. Long Meadow students honored are Ashley Matthews for Graphic Communications 2, Benjamin Wiseman for Graphic Communications 2, and most outstanding vocational students 2016 Long Meadow student honored is Lauren Granger for Cosmetology 2. We have a memo from Mr. Donald Jarvis of Lower Pioneer Valley Career and Technical Education Center dated May 2nd, 2016 regarding Student of the Month for April. Long Meadow students honored are Benjamin Wiseman, Graphic Communications 2. What was left off of here was an email sent on the 25th from Barb McLaughlin regarding the BYOD program. It was forwarded to us on April 25th, but it didn't make the packets for April 26th. So I just want to make sure it's included in somewhere.
Okay.
We'll report it the next time.
Okay. All right, so I will open up the floor to any visitor or public comments.
Hi, good evening, Superintendent Doyle and School Committee. My name is Laura Gebhardt, and I live at 8 Canterbury Lane. I'm here tonight to speak about my deep concern over the proposed search process for the new principal of Wolf Swamp School and to present my proposed revision for the process. This proposal is as follows. Since it is late in the school year, Superintendent Doyle advertises for the position now. Then, when Mr. O'Shea begins on July 1st, he should oversee, number 1, the selection of the candidates for interviews, number 2, the interviews, and of course, number 3, the final hiring. He should have full command of the process. It should not be limited in any way. My husband, James, emailed Superintendent Doyle on May 3rd, the day we received her email outlining the search process timeline. He asked her to respectfully and professionally step aside and allow incoming Superintendent O'Shea to lead the process, not just the final selection. It has been a week, and we have still received no response from Superintendent Doyle. I have 3 children who have attended, are currently attending, and will attend Wolf Swamp. I am also a graduate of Wolf Swamp myself. So I have had a connection to Wolf Swamp for over 30 years, and I, as well as other here, care very deeply about this wonderful school. I am not here alone tonight. Present tonight is a group of concerned Wolf Swamp parents, and if you could raise your hand, that would be great. Somewhere out in the hall still, and we have the incoming PTA president here as well. We are all here to ensure that this process is handled appropriately and professionally. There are many other parents who share these sentiments. We have received numerous emails in response to our email just a few days ago who could not attend tonight but are watching on LCTV. We are all concerned that this process is being unduly rushed by a superintendent who is retiring and will have no professional relationship with the new principal, and furthermore, no accountability to the Wolf Swamp and Longmeadow community. For the past 5 years, Wolf Swamp has been extremely fortunate to have Dr. Neil Guile at the helm. As you saw just from a few minutes ago, he has brought incredible energy and compassion to the school, and we are all tremendously appreciative of his tireless efforts on behalf of our school community. I want to publicly congratulate him for his new position as Director of Curriculum and Instruction at Hampden-Wilbraham, and we wish him well. But as a community, we must take a moment to consider what a huge loss this is, not only for Wolf Swamp, but our community as a whole. Good school districts do not simply lose professionals like Dr. Guile. Good school systems should do everything they can to protect and fully utilize professionals like Dr. Guile. Considering that Superintendent Doyle is retiring, we think that it is in the best interest of the school community for the entire process of hiring the new principal to be in the hands of incoming Superintendent Marty O'Shea. Although Superintendent Doyle's email refers to having Marty O'Shea involved in the process, we are not confident that he will have the freedom to be an independent voice in this process. Therefore, we propose that only the advertising be done before Mr. O'Shea starts, and he takes over the process from there. The email we received from Superintendent Doyle outlined a very quick application and vetting process. The current timeline indicates that a decision will be made on June 13th. Curiously, June 13th is the day before town elections, when 2 of the current school committee members' terms will end, and 2 new members will be elected to the committee. Even though the superintendent hires the principal and not the school committee, the school committee certainly participates in the process, acts as an advisory body, and some members will sit on the search committee. Additionally, the process outlined by Superintendent Doyle would make this entire process only 6 weeks from posting the position to filling it, and only 3 weeks of screening, vetting, interviews, site visits, and consideration from the time of application deadline. There are only 4 days between the job posting being closed and in-person interviews. This tight time frame would most certainly limit the pool to applicants in a very restricted geographic area. It also raises concerns about whether the position has already been earmarked for someone. It is hard to believe that a thorough review of candidates can be done in such a short amount of time. These timeframes leave the impression of an effort to inappropriately manipulate a process and control a decision for which the current superintendent has no accountability. As concerned parents, we are respectfully asking Superintendent Doyle and the school committee to adopt the revised timeline as presented. We are talking about a delay of a few weeks, which is well worth it to get the process right. If we need to have an interim principal to allow for the search for the best candidate, that should be a viable option. This position would most logically and easily be filled by a veteran teacher of Wolf Swamp who can maintain the status quo during the search. The Wolf Swamp community has paid dearly for this loss, and we deserve a thorough and respectful process for hiring our new principal. A decision made with the, quote, full consent and approval of Superintendent O'Shea, unquote, must not be compared to a process conducted by Superintendent O'Shea. The 2 are not alike. I ask that the school committee advise wisely in this regard and allow Superintendent O'Shea to conduct this process as he should. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to respond. Superintendent O'Shea and I have spoken on 2 separate occasions. He's fully in favor of the process used. It's the exact same process that was used that got us Neil Guile. It was the same time of year when we had a resignation of the previous principal in the same time frame that we've used for all the principals. I understand that when you're in the business world, it seems like a longer period of time is advantageous, but we're running into a couple of things. First of all, when you hire a principal and it becomes public that the principal is a finalist, it makes an entire community upset. So you always have a shorter time frame in education than in the business world. The second thing is we're getting toward the end of the school year. If this process is pushed back much further, then you're coming to a time of year where people won't apply, you won't be able to get people to come for interviews, you won't be able to get the committee together, because once you get to vacation schedules, the end of June and July, it becomes impossible to bring people together. I fully appreciate your concern, but Superintendent O'Shea, this is his hire. I've been very clear about that. This is the person he has to work with. It's a person of his team. These are the conversations we've had. He's asked me to conduct the search the way we always do. Superintendents pass this over to the committee. They bring forward the 3 candidates, and at that point, the superintendent gets involved. So this is the same process. I hope you understand that I love Longmeadow. I have Longmeadow's best interest at heart. If Superintendent O'Shea wanted to come over and do this from step 1, he would, but it wouldn't change the process because it's going to be the committee that brings forward the 3 candidates, and at that point, he takes over. But if you push this further, you can't do site visits, you won't be able to get into schools. We will have a very busy end of the June where we won't have people available to come visit the candidate when we have them here. And again, getting that committee together is going to be next to impossible.
Any further visitor comments? Hello.
Why don't you go first? My name is Elizabeth Scanlon. I'm a resident of Longmeadow, and I also have 2 children, or 1 child, a 2nd grader in the public schools, and a kindergartner next year. I am also a 6th grade teacher at Williams Middle School, and Becca Noble and I are here to speak about keeping the full-time 7th, 8th grade team. So Becca's going to do most of the talking because I'm on the tail end of a cold here, so I apologize for my voice.
We thought that this would be a good opportunity to talk about our experience with the larger class size. One of the things we've done in the past 3 years is we've been working with an organization to create a more balanced literacy approach in our classrooms, and we've had great success with this. One of the integral parts of balanced literacy, one of the components is conferencing with students. And what we've discovered, this year we have about 25 kids per class, and it makes it very difficult when you have large numbers of students in a class to conference with them in a timely manner, give them the feedback they need. And conferencing is really important because it's the point where we offer differentiation, we can support the students both as readers and writers. So that's one of the things we wanted to say. The other piece with larger class size is when you get down to sort of the nuts and bolts of grading written work and written reports and essays, it really does extend the time frame in terms of getting those reports and essays back to the children. And we just want to make sure that we're meeting everybody's needs in a timely way and in the best way that we can. And then do you want to go to the...
Sure, yeah. Also with this class of 25, average size is 25, 18 of them are a special ed population. There are quite a few that are on 504 plans as well. So it is challenging to meet the students' needs. You know, it's very difficult to meet their individualized needs if the population is that high in a classroom. I know one of my science classes, almost half of them are either on an IEP or a 504 plan. So it is difficult. It's a struggle. And there are supports in the classroom, but it does make it difficult.
And I think following up our last point is, even if we went to a .6 position for a team, one of the things we've noticed in the past couple of years with the Common Core curriculum, it's a rigorous curriculum. And we're finding that we get more kids before and after school. Now, ideally, you know, that's great because then it's one-on-one, it's small group instruction, but we're finding more and more kids there, so we sort of lose that benefit, and we're not maximizing the instruction that we can give to the kids. So we really feel that a full-time team offers the most in terms of meeting the needs of the students, just sort of across the board, and in all subjects.
Because if it was a .6 position, they wouldn't be available in the morning and in the afternoon consistently on a daily basis. So if a student needed to come in and see a teacher, they wouldn't necessarily be available there in the morning or afternoon.
Yeah. I think that's it. Hey, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tracy Bradshaw. I'm also a community member, a parent, and a teacher. So I just want to pick up where Becca left off in terms of math. I'm the math teacher. I'm the 7th grade 7.1 and 7.2 math teacher. And the Common Core curriculum does really accelerate our curriculum. It brings concepts, it's been bringing concepts up into the grade levels that are making math a little bit more difficult. And class size is really, really important, not just for our kids who struggle in math. I have a class of 18 students, and 11 of them are on IEPs, and I can't imagine if those numbers go a little bit higher. But my accelerated class is an accelerated curriculum. It's not a class full of accelerated students. However, they're highly motivated and excellent math students, but it's an accelerated class. So it's a compacted curriculum where I teach the 7th and 8th grade together. There's a lot of misconceptions about that. Class. That class size would be 30 for me next year if we do not have a position at all. It would probably be in the mid-20s if it were a .6 position, and then lower if we had a full-time position for support. But those students need as much support as our kids on IEPs and 504s. I do these math mornings in the morning on Tuesday and Thursday morning where I teach from 7:30 or 7:45 to 8:20, and I review, pre-teach, and it is standing room only with my accelerated students in the math mornings for their support. So class size really matters. There's a correlation between class size and increased class size. There's decreased engagement. Students are engaged 2 to 3 times more often in a class size of 15 compared to a class size of 30. So we're here to speak on behalf of our staff in support for a full-time position, 7th and 8th grade, to keep those 4 positions in our school, in Williams Middle School. These 4 jobs, I know you realize that there are 4 lives, but they're affecting our entire school. It affects our morale, it affects all of our positions. If you were to ask me right now what I'm going to be teaching next year, I couldn't honestly tell you. I know it'll be math, but until there's a decision made about the staffing, I'm not sure how that's going to look. So it really affects everyone. In terms of special ed, due to the class size, if we increase class sizes, it's a definite correlation between increasing referrals to RTI and special education referrals. Learning lab time in IEP support classrooms. Learning lab time will probably need to spend more on reteaching and homework rather than the focus on their IEP goals, which are meant to remediate deficiencies or deficits and ultimately reduce services. If we have more IEP students with one teacher, that teacher is more responsible for more accommodations, and this affects pace, and it affects the pacing and the teaching for our general ed students as well. So it really does affect both our general ed population and our special ed population if our class size increases. So we're really hoping that you would consider keeping these full-time positions. Taylor has been fantastic in having a full faculty meeting, asking for our feedback, having an open door policy, letting us email him. And I can say with honesty that we're speaking for the entire staff when we ask you to consider these full-time positions. And in terms of equity, I can give the same math problems to two different students, and I can give a calculator to one student so that they're successful, and paper and pencil to another student so that they're successful. Equity does not mean the same exact thing for students to be successful, and I feel the same way in our schools. I believe that, our principals make decisions that are best for our school based on their resources, based on all of the parameters that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. We share a common curriculum, we share common goals, we collaborate with our teachers, we produce successful students at Williams and Glenbrook, but each day our administrators make different decisions for their building and their needs for their building. So I hope that you will consider keeping these positions.
Hi, I'm Colleen Santinello. I'm an 8th grade teacher, one of the 8th grade teachers for science at Williams Middle School. And I understand the committee has a difficult decision to make in regards to the staffing at Williams Middle School. On behalf of the science department at Williams and the Williams faculty, many of which are here in support, I would like to remind you that providing a safe learning environment for our students should be a priority when making this decision. Please be aware that the physical size and arrangement of the science labs at Williams creates a safety concern when the class sizes are higher than 21 students. We can comfortably and safely fit 4 students per bench in our labs, and there are 4 benches per classroom. In addition, the labs are not handicap accessible, and that adds an additional safety concern. We have had students who are handicapped in the past, and there is a current 6th grade student in a wheelchair who will be moving on to the science labs. I have taught at Williams for 22 years, and when I first came here, class size was a big concern. The class sizes were in 25 to 27. So I know what can happen. Large science classes will limit the hands-on labs that we do as part of the curriculum and also have a negative effect on student learning. So please keep that in mind in your decision, and thank you.
Thank you. Any other visitor comments?
Good evening. My name is Jackie Garrett, and I just wanted to revisit the Wolf Swamp conversation. I live at 133 Thetford. I have a kindergartner in Wolf Swamp right now, and I also have a 4-year-old that would be going into Wolf Swamp and a 2.5-year-old that's soon coming after. I frankly do not care which superintendent chooses the principal. However, my concern is in your response to the reason why the search is so short is because of convenience. And when we moved here, we just moved here in 2013. When we moved here, one of the reasons why we chose the Wolf Swamp community was because we heard such fabulous things about Dr. Guile. Wolf Swamp is not like the other elementary schools in Longmeadow, as you well know, because the special education programs are also housed there. So though my son is not taking part of it, I do think that in terms of consideration and the fact that Dr. Guile was just there for 5 years, that in choosing somebody who knew it should be looked at a little bit more carefully than what's been standard. I unfortunately did not get to do a lot of research about what's happening at Center at Williams in terms of how long their principals have been there, or when is the last time they actually had any other sort of big support system change. However, I don't remember your name. I'm so sorry. The person who gave the speech. Laura. What she pointed out and what she recommended in terms of a interim principal rather. Interim principal, I think that should be something that the committee takes into consideration, just so we're not so pushed towards the school's break is coming and we won't have time for people to do site visits. Perhaps if we thought about putting somebody in place by winter time, we can allow for more site visits for longer posting time so that the person that they choose to take over as principal of Wolf Swamp wants to be here, has at least for my personal benefit, a 8-year plan of staying in the school, so at least there's some sort of consistency in who my child sees every day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The plan is to put in an interim if we can't find someone. Once again, when we hired Neil Guile, it was this time of year. The same process was used, and we were fortunate to get Neil. If we do not find a qualified candidate, that would be fine. In terms of educators, this is the hiring season. In terms of administrators, people do not switch jobs in December. And if you wait until mid-year to do that, then you're going to get someone that's leaving a community for a reason and not a good reason. So whether it's a superintendent or it's a principal, now's the time you really need to hire. You also have things like the schedule that needs to be done. You need to meet with staff. You need committees set up. So in terms of having somebody in place, hopefully by August 1st, it would give them time to do that. I understand you're raising excellent points, but the educational world is just a little bit different.
Bill Mulderig, 3 Oxford Road, Longmeadow. To the Longmeadow School Committee, I'm here tonight to express my concern for the proposed 4 7th grade teacher cuts at the Williams Middle School. It is disappointing that the school committee is considering making unnecessary cuts at the teacher level. This disappointment is even more concerning due to the fact that it is being considered at such a late time in the budget process. Along with many other citizens of the town and of Williams Middle School, I have the following concerns. The current Williams 6th grade class has endured, as Ms. Scanlon and Ms. Noble outlined, class sizes of upwards of 25 to 1, which exceeds the Longmeadow district goal of under 22 per class. Speaking with both teachers and students, and we heard it tonight in the comments from the teachers, the larger class size has made this year particularly challenging for the current 6th graders at Williams Middle School. As this class enters the 7th grade, it is projected to have 125 students, which is larger than the current 7th grade class of 119. This is not the year to be cutting or reducing teachers. Over the past 10 years, 6 classes of the 10 Williams Middle School 7th grade classes during that period have been smaller than next year's expected 7th grade class size of 125 students. The current 6th grade class is comprised of a large group of center school children, including my son, who struggled in the MCAS results in the 4th and 5th grade. I think it was outlined by several of the teachers from Williams that class has a high level of 504 and IEP students. This is not the class to experiment with such large class sizes. Longmeadow just endured a painful redistricting at the elementary school level due to the overcrowding at Blueberry Hill School. If enrollment is truly believed to be declining at Williams Middle School, which would be the justification for the reduction of teachers, then enrollment at both Center and Blueberry must be on the decline because those schools feed Williams. However, Blueberry Hill School currently has grades with upwards of 5 sections, and Center, which historically has been at 3 sections per grade, has some grades with 4 sections. Therefore, logic and elementary school staffing within the district would seem to indicate that enrollment will not be declining at Williams. If you add the Center School and Blueberry Hill student populations together, since a majority of the students from both schools do attend Williams, it seems like there's about a 15% fallout if you add those 2 numbers together per grade that go to Glenbrook. To project future enrollment and compare those enrollments to historical data, there is not a projected enrollment decline. In fact, the current Center and Blueberry Hill 2nd grade classes project to have about the same number of students as the current Williams 8th grade class, which is historically one of the largest at Williams. I took this data based on the historical data on the DESI website dating back to 2006. The enrollment numbers are quite static over the last 10-year period. We all know how hard it would be to be able to add teachers back to our town budget in upcoming years, and it makes no sense if there's no compelling student population decline to justify the teacher cuts. Bear with me through these numbers, but if you look at the current Center School and Blueberry Hill grades combined, this is where we fall. The current 2nd grade combined is 165 students. The current 3rd grade is 146 students. The current 4th grade is 149 students. The current 5th grade is 138 students. The current 6th is 154. The current 7th is 134, the current 8th is 173, and the current 9th is 155. We're not suffering a decline in population. We have a very static enrollment. Miss Doyle was the superintendent when Glenbrook and Williams terminated, I believe, the traveling teaching team concept. It is hard to believe that she would sit in on all the school committee and budgeting meetings over the last 4 months with the select board as well, when this travel team was discussed, and not inform you as the school committee of the disadvantages that she believes were experienced when the travel team was originally in place. The school committee already voted to approve the budget, which includes the salary of these 4 teachers in question. Ms. Doyle's decision to not inform her committee earlier than 2 weeks about the lack of a need for a travel team at Glenbrook should not impact the students and teachers at Williams at this late date in the process. At the last, I believe at the last school committee meeting, the teachers union representative from Williams, Ms. Risotto, spoke about that teacher morale at Williams is at an all-time low due to these possible teacher cuts, and it was reiterated tonight by some of the staff. And this uncertainty during this uneven budget process has created much stress for the staff and the students. This is very unfortunate for the staff and for the students of Williams Middle School. The budget is approved, keeping these 4 teachers at Williams. The incoming 7th grade has more students than the current 7th grade. The class sizes at Williams have been very static from year to year and project to remain as such. This is not the year to cut teachers at Williams. Please keep the eye on the children of Longmeadow and keep these 4 children at Williams. Thank you.
Jess Hutchins, 128 Hilltop Road. I would like to begin by congratulating Dr. Guile on his new position in Hampden Wilbraham. Dr. Guile, you are adored by this community, and we wish you the very best. You will most certainly be a great success. Words cannot express the enormity of this loss for Wolf Swamp, our school district, and the town of Longmeadow. Regarding the hiring process for the new Wolf Swamp principal, hiring principals is one of the most important and impactful decisions a superintendent makes. The team of principals is part of the superintendent's administrative team with whom he or she works closely. Therefore, the superintendent conducting the search should be the superintendent who will be working with the principal. I respectfully disagree with Superintendent Doyle about this being, quote, the way it has always been. By way of example, in the summer of 2006, we had a superintendent leaving and a new superintendent starting. The hiring of the principal was left to the incoming superintendent, who conducted the entire search over the summer. Ms. Gebhardt's recommendations are appropriate. If the school committee, along with Superintendent Doyle, can get the process started by advertising and collecting applications, then Mr. O'Shea can complete the hiring process in July. While I understand the desire to have someone in place on July 1, I am not sure the best candidates would take a job knowing that the superintendent conducting the search process will not be their supervisor on day 1. Also, more time and space will attract more candidates from a broader geographic area. Posting now would also make people aware of the opening, so they may not commit elsewhere before interviewing with Longmeadow. In the meantime, leaving an interim in place or leaving the position vacant are perfectly acceptable options and a minor issue in an effort to take the time to get the process done right, which is exactly what Ms. Gebhardt and the Wolf Swamp community are asking for tonight. Even if this process is purportedly done with the full consent and approval of Superintendent O'Shea, the acting superintendent holds all the power, spoken and unspoken. This is just the reality. No amount of discussion or direction by the school committee or political rhetoric can alter this dynamic. Whomever is directing the process will drive the final decision. Regarding the role of the school committee, while this hire is the superintendent's by law, school committees always participate in the process, and superintendents collaborate with the committee on the hire. In this particular situation, the school committee has a stronger leadership role because we are in a period of transition. I hope the school committee and Superintendent Doyle will do the right thing and step aside to allow Superintendent O'Shea start in Longmeadow the way he should, by conducting this search process fully and independently. Anything less will undermine his leadership as a new superintendent. Thank you.
Any other visitor comments? All right, seeing none, I'll turn it over to school committee comments. Russ?
I'd like to respond to a news article I saw recently about the middle school team. I want to make it clear to everyone that we didn't, as a committee, make a decision about the middle school team in a vacuum. We did do it with administration, superintendent's present at every meeting. We talked about the middle school team on February 10th. We received a presentation. That presentation showed the team and splitting the team and what the class sizes would look like at Glenbrook and Williams. We all voted on that decision, the team, being split between the two middle schools. The additional thing that happened as part of that process is that we actually talked to the union, and there was discussions about whether we could have that team. In the past, that traveling team only worked 4 blocks. We were asking if they could work 5, if we could make this work through the budget. Those type of discussions happened. So the fact that we made it all the way to after the budget was voted, and now we're sitting here talking about the middle school team again, after several months, and no concerns about, is this going to work with the schedule? Are we going to be able to make this work? Did it work in the past? I mean, nothing was brought up for that whole time period, other than presentations about how we were going to make it work. So the fact that we're sitting here today after that type of timeline is totally unacceptable to me. And I'd say, I'm just a committee member, but I'd imagine those 4 teachers, it's really unacceptable to them, because we're sitting here today talking about something that we voted not to do a long time ago with nothing told to us that whole time that maybe in some way this wouldn't work. If I was told that months ago, I certainly would have considered it. I have a real problem considering it right now. The second issue I want to raise is the warrants that went out to the citizens of this town had a presentation by the town manager about the budget. It describes in about 3 or 4 pages all the budget discussions, the rationale for different budgets, percentages by department. In that presentation, it refers to the committee cutting taking $100,000 from free cash. So the committee doesn't have free cash. That's something the town has. We don't actually have free cash on our side. The $100,000 that is being referred to in that presentation is actually monies that the town asked us to cut. So we had these discussions. The town asked us to cut $100,000. They actually earmarked where we were supposed to cut it. We cut it, and now in the presentation it says, well, you're cutting $100,000 of free cash, which doesn't exist, and we shouldn't have done that. No, that's totally disingenuous, because we were told by the town to cut the $100,000. So we cut it at their request, and now we're being told, and the whole community is being told, that maybe we shouldn't have done that. And I will say that that's not all one-time money, because at least $50,000 of it is simply the town said we were over budgeted in a line item. We cut the line item to budget more appropriately, at least in their minds. So that's not a one-time savings. That's money that they felt we were over budgeting in a particular area. So I want to make it clear that that presentation, we all voted for this. We had a majority on our committee. We had a majority on the Board of Selectmen. We had the Finance Committee recommended the budget. All the governing bodies have agreed that this budget makes sense. The presentation might lead you to believe otherwise, but that's not the case. All of us agree that that budget makes sense. As far as the Wolf Swamp search timeline, I also have some concerns about it. I'd like to discuss it when we get to our agenda item. I don't think it's appropriate to do it now. And lastly, I wanted to say before Neil left that I congratulate him on getting his new position. I wish him well. I think he's done a great job for our school. The kids loved him, and the staff loved him. I went on the search visit, and I think he's done a great job over there. So thank you very much.
So I'd like to echo a couple of things that Russ said. First of all, I'm really disappointed that it's May 9th and we're still talking about the budget and cutting staff. This should have been finished in January or February. And I'd apologize to the teachers and the students and everybody at Williams that has had to go through the roller coaster of this. I just don't think it's fair. In terms of the Wolf Swamp, thank you, and thank you, teachers, for coming to speak. I'm sure that was not easy. I don't like speaking up here myself, so I appreciate your sharing your concerns with us. And parents from Wolf Swamp, thank you for coming, and I appreciate, again, you coming and speaking and sharing your thoughts. I share many of your concerns, and again, I'll speak about that at the agenda item, so thank you. And I think that's it in terms of the comments. I did want to talk to the committee about I looked at our calendar in terms of our upcoming school committee meetings, and we have, when the election is on June 14th, and we have a meeting on the 13th, but not one again until June 27th. So we wouldn't be able to meet as a new committee and reorganize until the 27th. So I'd like to suggest that we either reschedule the meeting the day before on the 13th for the 15th or sometime thereafter, or we add a meeting that week so that we can get organized. We'll have 2 new members and we won't have a chair. And I think with all the transition that's happening, I think we should put a meeting on the books. Our schedules are all tough, so I don't know if we should talk about that after.
I mean,
We can put that on the agenda.
I had something to read as well, similar to Russ, but I also sent everyone an email as well the day after our meeting 2 weeks ago with my disappointment about the middle school teachers discussion that we had the night before. Coming to school committee 10 weeks after the budget discussion is irresponsible. We had a very difficult budget season this year. I know we spent 3 months going through that budget, several meetings on school committee, going to the select board, going to the finance committee, really trying to get this budget balanced on both sides. There was a lot of work, and not once during our entire budget season was it mentioned that you might have asked the principals at the middle school to go back and see if they really need those teachers. If you had done it, you had plenty of opportunity to mention it. I also wanted to publicly mention as well my disappointment with the decision to publicly state that the decision to add the middle school team was done without administration's involvement. Administration was sitting at the table, nodding when school committee discussed this at our meeting. In fact, they mentioned having to go back to the teachers union to see if we would be okay with the travel team teaching 5 sections. Then you came back to us, said that the union was okay with the 5 positions. At that point, if you thought that at that point you should have spoken up if you thought that the team wasn't necessary. We made the decision to split the team between both schools based on class size discussion back in February. The budget was presented to cut the team. It would have brought class sizes up beyond what the district would typically like to see. During that discussion, Janet, you mentioned that Glenbrook has been in higher class sizes for the last couple years, and that was when the discussion came to split the team. And everyone agreed that that was the best solution. That's when we had to go back to the union, and that's when further discussions happened. So to have a headline in a newspaper read that the decision to keep the middle school team was done without administration's involvement is wrong and incorrect, and I'm just disappointed in the process the last couple weeks. And I guess I'd like to also thank Principal Guile, or Dr. Guile, for all of his work the last 5. I know that's all right. We've heard a ton of good things with Wolf Swamp, and we will definitely miss you. So.
I have just, before I get to this side of the table, I was asked to remind everybody regarding transportation for next school year for busing. The business office is working on registration for bus transportation for next school year and expects to have information emailed and posted to the district's website next week regarding the process, so that everybody is aware. Registration takes place before the end of this school year so that bus routes can be established for the following school year. And secondly, the business office has posted summer custodian job postings on School Spring and at the high school guidance office, and applications will be accepted until Friday, May the 13th. And if I'm correct, these are the student or additional positions that are used to help our full-time custodians for the summer, correct? Okay. Any other school committee comments from this side? Yeah. Go ahead.
So I'm going to address the majority of, I'm going to join Russell and Michelle in addressing the majority of these concerns during the appropriate agenda item. But I think that it comes, kind of as no surprise that I am not thrilled with the way that this budget season and cycle has resulted either. At a previous meeting, I did speak to the committee about our, continued use of one-time funds. But I think that that is just sort of a symptom of larger issues within the way that we conducted this year's cycle. I think that the concerns we heard from our staff tonight, outline, the issue, which is that they've been yanked back and forth for the better part of 3 months, which is not fair to them. It's not fair to us. It's not fair to the parents in the room and the students that they have at home. And so, I'm eager to hear, Taylor's, here to hear his presentation later this evening. I spoke with Laura last week, earlier this week? I don't know. And I do share some of the same concerns, that she raised regarding, the appointment of a new principal at Wolf Swamp. I am very sensitive to the timeline issue. And I think that for those of us on the committee, we're very in tune with those timeline issues, but I do also believe, and they can't be underscored, I think that that's an important thing, is that those constraints in hiring and education exist. But I think in terms of, the committee itself and in terms of how we proceed with the hiring, we do kind of need to take a step back and be sensitive to the needs of the Wolf Swamp community. It's obviously a special place, and it's a great school. A large part of the reason it's a great school is because of the leadership they've had, and again, I'm sorry to see Dr. Guile leaving. Neil's been so great to have for the last several years, but there is a concern that they do share. That they are unique in the sense that they have not had steady leadership for the last 8 years. They're not as fortunate as Blueberry and Center have been to have, the same principal for a long time, or even a principal come up within the community. So I think we need to be sensitive to those concerns and certainly, lean towards them a little bit, lean towards our parents. And is there anything else? I think that was it. Jim, good.
Did you have anything?
Yeah, I just want to mention we have a town meeting tomorrow night. I hope that all of us in this room will be there, as well as all those listening. It's been mentioned that we've faced a very tough budget process this year. The evidence for that is found in the town manager's preface to the warrant. There's a line here that's rather interesting. They're obsessed with the town is projected to hit the maximum allowable tax rate of $25 per thousand in the next 5 years. And then they say, if that happens, service cuts and personnel reductions will occur, and the town is prohibited by law from implementing an operational override. Okay? Therefore, it is important that the general fund budget does not increase property taxes to the fullest extent allowed, and that expenses are managed as efficiently as possible. The goal, their goal, is to incrementally reduce the annual growth in the tax rate to avoid hitting the maximum levy. But wait a minute, that's double talk, okay? Yeah, it's true. Under Proposition 2.5, you can increase the levy limit each year by 2.5%. And eventually, when you get to 25 per thousand, you can't go any further with residential tax. But this proposal is to say that's now the goal, to get us to that at a very slow pace. Well, how are you going to handle the very real cost of hiring teachers, paraprofessionals, and people to staff the schools? We have a mission statement in the school committee, and that's eyes on the child. That requires money. We put the education of children first and then ask, how much will it cost? They seem to have operated this year, and it's a quite explicit cost. That's the complete determinant of what the select board thinks is appropriate for the town of Long Meadow. So there's going to be a clash tomorrow. I wouldn't be a bit surprised to hear someone get up in the audience and propose cutting the budget even further. So we need support out there. What's going to happen with regard to school policies? Well, we'll do the best we can, but very frankly, it was shaped by the fact that we had a real struggle with this select board. And that's a fact. And it's sad that there's no opposition or no competition for the select board seats, and there aren't any, there's no competition for the school committee seats. Now, you can say that's a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing. It means you're not airing contradictions that exist in our society. I'm not talking about class war, but there are some significant disagreements in this town between those who support education and those who are simply concerned about the tax rate. Okay, so think about that. And I give my best to Neil Guile. I already did. Thank you.
Liz, did you have anything?
No, I'm just going to save for the discussion.
Okay, well, as a committee member, not as the chair, I do have a statement. There's been much commentary and debate over the last few months regarding the school budget. I've participated in these discussions, and I must say that I'm extremely disappointed that we have devolved to where we are today. As a school committee, during our retreat over the summer, we voted on and adopted norms that were to guide how we relate to each other, how we communicate, how we govern, how we conduct meetings, and how we improve. We also established, based upon guidelines from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees and the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, the roles and responsibilities of the school committee and of the superintendent. All of these documents can be found on the district website under the tab of School Committee. One of the major roles that a school committee holds is to oversee and maintain the budget. No one will dispute that this year, this task has been extremely time-consuming, stressful, and laborious. Unfortunately, much of the angst and stress has been created amongst school committee members themselves. When the budget process began, as it does every year in October, the school committee knew that reductions would need to be made based upon the figures that were provided by the town's CFO. The administrative team then met over the next few months and spent many hours preparing budget scenarios for the school committee to review. They did so with the information that they had at that time, which was December and January, along with historical data, and they brought forth what they felt as professional educators was best for all students of Longmeadow. Having to reduce personnel is never an easy decision, nor one that is taken lightly. In the past 3 years that I have been involved with school committee, I can honestly say that every effort is made to make reductions as far away from impacting the classroom as possible. Also, while many internal discussions took place, the superintendent and the assistant superintendent for finance had regular discussions with the town manager and town CFO in which they worked to ensure that the schools received as much financial support that the town could provide. As time progressed, the chair of the select board and the chair of the school committee also participated in some of these meetings. These meetings with town officials were not to determine programmatic impacts, but only to discuss total dollar amounts. On February 1st of this year, the superintendent presented a budget to the school committee that offered 3 different tiers of reductions. The reason for multiple options was due to the fact that the school committee made funding a tuition-free full-day kindergarten program its priority. It was clearly stated that none of the tiers of reductions were ideal, but based upon our fixed obligations, they were the best options available. During the school committee's discussion, it was suggested by the superintendent that the district consider phasing in tuition-free full-day kindergarten. While not a preferred option, it would afford the schools the ability to make reductions gradually rather than all in one year. The meeting ended with school committee stating they would like to ask the town for the maximum they would allocate to the schools for FY17. February 10th, the public forum budget hearing was held, and additional information was provided based upon the request of school committee members. Specifically, past, present, and future class size and enrollment data for the middle schools, along with what class size would be projected at Williams if a team of teachers were eliminated, and how a travel team could help alleviate class size between Glenbrook and Williams. After the public hearing was closed, further discussion amongst the school committee took place, with members ultimately deciding that the school committee should bring forth a budget that included all of the school's need and not accept one of the recommended proposals from the administration. On February 11th, the school committee voted unanimously to approve a budget that included implementing tuition-free full-day kindergarten and keeping the team at Williams Middle School, which was approximately $300,000 over the town's allocated amount for the schools. As the schools, we are one part of the town's budget, albeit the largest part. However, that does not permit us to ignore the other needs of the town, suggest how the town allocates its money, or to take an unwavering stand as to the amount of funding we feel we deserve. Budgeting is, has been, and always will be difficult, as every party has both wants and needs. The art of compromise involves everyone feeling that they have gotten what they need and that they also have a share of what they want. In order to achieve bringing a balanced budget to town floor tomorrow night, both the school committee and select board have made reductions both in programming and choosing to use one-time funds, school choice or free cash monies, depending which board you refer to. The financial experts for both sides have stressed that this is not sound business practice and that it puts everyone in a deficit situation entering the FY18 budget process. The issues that are central cause for the additional funding can be summarized into two categories: tuition-free full-day kindergarten and the team of teachers at Williams Middle School. We have been presented with at least 5 different budget scenarios from our administrators, those who are trained educational professionals. All of these proposals have ultimately been rejected by the school committee. When making decisions as a member of this committee, I reflect on our mission statement, especially the part that states, "The Longmeadow School Committee will make informed decisions in the best interests of the students, the schools, and the Longmeadow community." I also refer back to our norms where it states, "Committee members will act with the best information available at the time, considering data, the superintendent's recommendations, proposals, and suggestions. Committee members will strive to make the best decision at the time based upon research, available facts, stakeholder and public input, best practice, and financial consideration, and that school committee members agree to thoughtfully seek and support solutions that they believe will provide the greatest benefit to the largest number of students. Also, the superintendent will make every effort to provide the school committee complete and well-organized materials for meetings and sound rationale for recommendations." I have done research regarding these two issues, looking at our like districts as designated by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Regarding tuition-free full-day kindergarten, no one disputes the fact that early education and intervention is key. No one would dispute the fact that kindergarten is part of public education. What people are forgetting is what our state requires, which is a half-day program, and that we in Longmeadow are providing above and beyond. Is full-day kindergarten in the state's future? Absolutely. However, when that will be mandated is anyone's guess. When Senator Eric Lesser visited the school committee back in March, even he could not predict full-day kindergarten's future. Research shows that early intervention pays for itself over time. For these reasons, I can fully support tuition-free full-day kindergarten. However, I cannot support it at the expense of other existing programs which need to be cut in order to do so. Phasing in, while not ideal, gives all parties a better handle on financial planning. Since addressing this topic 2 years ago, the school committee has promised to reassess the full-day kindergarten fee and has held to its promise by incorporating it into our goals and by reducing tuition. Our like districts still have tuitions, some of which have increased rather than decreased over the last 2 years. Wakefield was able to eliminate tuition by receiving an 11.39% increase in their appropriations from their town's general fund that year. Holliston's school committee requested eliminating kindergarten tuition for FY17. However, their superintendent has recommended that the tuition be reduced by 20% each year over the next 5 years in order to maintain financial stability. Regarding the team at Williams Middle School, I support the commitment of the district to maintain low class sizes. I feel the parents and students of Longmeadow are fortunate that this remains a priority of our administration in such trying financial times. However, the reality is that class sizes at one middle school should not be less than the class sizes that are found throughout the district at all other grade levels. Again, in looking at our like districts, middle school class sizes range from 11 to 27, with the majority being in the range of 22 to 25. Just like Longmeadow, it is the math sections that cause the most fluctuation because of the differentiated programs being offered. In the documentation provided by the superintendent, on March 10th, the projected class size at Williams, if a team of teachers was eliminated, would be 11 to 26 for 7th grade and 18 to 25 for 8th grade. The numbers at Glenbrook are projected at 14 to 26 for 7th grade and 19 to 26 for 8th grade. These class sizes are most certainly in line with our like districts. If the team remains at Williams Middle School, projected class sizes will then be 15 to 16 for 7th grade and 16.5 to 17 for 8th grade. Again, this is based on information that was provided to us on March the 10th. I know some of those numbers have changed. Let it be noted that the current 6th grade class, next year's 7th grade class, around whom this debate is focused, currently has class sizes of 24 to 27. So far, these class sizes have not been raised as an issue this year, so I'm uncertain as to why it's becoming an issue for next year. Both of these issues are important and deserve careful consideration and thorough analysis before making a decision. Sure, the school committee can certainly request $300,000 more from the town, as well as take one-time funding in order to achieve all of our wants. But is it what we need? We heard at our last meeting from the principal of Glenbrook that the school committee's desire to equalize class size is not advantageous. Let's remember that the superintendent, who is our district's leader, recommended that the team at Williams School be eliminated if we wish to eliminate tuition for full-day kindergarten. The school committee ignored her recommendation. She also recommended that we phase in the elimination of the kindergarten fee. That recommendation, too, was rejected. And yet school committee members are quick to criticize that the administrative team did not step up soon enough with the information. All of these budget scenarios and all of this information has been available to us starting in February. What's troublesome to me is the fact that there are members of the school committee who are choosing to ignore the guidelines that have been set forth by MASC and MASS regarding roles and responsibilities. These were created by our state associations after review of the American Association of School Administrators and National School Board Association documents regarding clear roles and responsibilities for school committees and superintendents. As stated on the MASC website, when roles are clear and relationships are sound, communities feel a sense of confidence in their school leadership, which in turn enhances the education of all students in the community. In order to work effectively, both of these state organizations have worked collaboratively, identifying 11 areas where guidelines have been set regarding the role of each party, school committee, and superintendent. Again, from MASC, a school committee must be responsive to its constituencies in governance, sensitive to the diverse needs of all learners, advocate for the students and learning before the people of the community, and as such, a vigorous ambassador for public education before all citizens. Throughout this year, there have been instances where school committee members have, in my personal opinion, overstepped roles in several areas regarding curriculum, staffing, and budget. I do not feel that it is appropriate or productive that the school committee begin to micromanage the superintendent or administration, thereby undermining their role as the leaders of the district. We have a long history of excellence in education in Longmeadow. We are ranked highly both within the state and within the country. We have gotten here due to the expertise of the educators and administrators that we hire. Their sound decision-making has led us to where we are today. Let us not forget our role in supporting them. Thank you. Russ?
I would like to not forget how you voted for the last few months. You voted with us. Today you have a turnaround, and apparently you're thinking something else. But our norms say that once the committee and a majority of us vote in favor of a budget, we support it as a committee.
I've never
That's what
said
our
that
norms
I didn't
say.
support it.
The travel team, the travel team was your idea. You
not
and
suggest
Superintendent
a travel
Doyle
team.
brought that up.
I did not suggest.
You
implementing
said,
a
my
travel
kids went to
team."
Glenbrook, it's not fair the class sizes are lower there, we need to do a travel team to make it
No, I
equal.
didn't say we needed a travel team. I said we needed to find a solution. I never suggested
Go
a
watch the
travel
video.
team.
Go watch the video. I think at least half of us remember
We'll be
that.
done with that.
I also want to just, if there's, at one point, if we could put an agenda item on, our grade schools ratings have actually dropped this year. We've gone down at all the elementary schools and the high school. We're now a 7 in the high school, and I don't know if people are aware of that, but that's what people look at when they move into this town. So we need to be aware of how our ratings have dropped. I think Center School is a 7 or 6, and Blueberry's now at 8, which is average. When you move to any town, which I seem to do a lot, you look when attached to Realtor.com is a Great Schools rating, and Great Schools rates 1 to 10 the school district in the town that you're moving to, and we've always been above our surrounding towns, and right now our high school is not above our surrounding towns.
But isn't Great Schools based on personal
Not that
commentary?
rating. You can, the stars are rated on personal commentary, but not their rating. Their rating is scores and growth. So if you go in, we have, if you go into more detail, we're actually a 3 in the growth.
What does that mean, like student population?
The student growth.
Or their
Their-
CAS scores?
I believe it's not the population, it's the scores. Everything in Great Schools is based on scores.
Well, I think they also look at AP offerings. It's kind of a whole variety of things, but a lot of it is scores.
Right.
Class sizes.
So it's just something we
also.
should address because the reason people move into our town is for the great ratings. And so if our ratings are dropping, we should be doing something about that.
I'm going to change the agenda up so that our teachers who are here to present around elementary science might have a chance to go home earlier this evening. So Sue, I will turn it over to you regarding the Science Committee review.
And I'm going to turn it over to Teresa Mendoza, who has chaired the committee all year. She is a fabulous 4th grade teacher at Blueberry Hill School, and she has really outdone herself on this committee, and all of them have worked hard really all year long, and she's got a great presentation, and you won't even have a question after, I bet you.
So thank you for seeing us this evening. I know that you have very challenging decisions always, but we hope that we could offer you some further ideas for improving those Great School scores and working towards an improved science curriculum. I'm just going to pull myself up here. Could I borrow the, I'm just worried that the volume is going to come up. So the Elementary Science Curriculum Committee was tasked by Sue Bertrand this year with getting together to look at the new Massachusetts Science, Technology, and Engineering standards, as well as to hopefully recommend a program to replace our 19-year-old science elementary curriculum program. So we have been meeting. Let's see, first our participants included grades 1 through 5. We were unable to have a K teacher available, but we did have a kindergarten teacher help us with some piloting of materials. So other than kindergarten, we had representatives from all 3 schools and from each grade, in addition to a special education teacher, technology integration teacher, and our technology integration specialist, Sandy, at the district level, as well as Sue. So Massachusetts quietly adopted some new science, technology, and engineering standards in January. It was a surprise to all of us as well. They've been in the works for quite a while with the next generation science standards, which were adopted within the country in 2013. So while much of the content of the Massachusetts standards, just like with the Common Core, Massachusetts has always been at the forefront. So we had a lot of the content that was used in the next generation science standards, and that was maintained. The last revision was 2006, and it was originally a 2001 set of standards that had some slight revisions in 2006, so they're referred to as 2001, 2006. But of course, there's been many, many changes in science and engineering over the past 15 years. We even were able to see in our science textbooks, we have a teacher on the committee who found her name in one of our Long Meadow elementary science textbooks. So she used that as a student here in Long Meadow. The addition of inquiry and design skills was a big change with the next generation science standards brought into Massachusetts this year. Also, the previous standards, 2001, 2006, were in grade level groupings. So there was a K through 2, a 3 through 5, 6 through 8, and so on. And they've been reorganized into grade level progressions. So everything is at an individual grade level now. And they were also coordinated with our new English Language Arts and Massachusetts Mathematics Massachusetts standards, which follow the Common Core. I'm just going to show you a quick presentation, if you don't mind, on the NGSS. She speaks more clearly than I do.
When people are first introduced to the next generation science standards, there's stunned silence. And then there's squirming in the chair, and people start to get antsy, but in a positive way. And then people respond with, oh my gosh, this is wonderful, this is cool, this is great.
This is an unprecedented time in education in the United States. Standards in themselves, the total document for the next generation, has the power to influence all of the components of the education system.
But see, normally we teach out of context. The biology teacher is teaching here, the mathematics teacher there, the English teacher over here. And then when it's time to synthesize, guess what? We aren't there.
The next generation standards are based upon research, current research, on how students learn.
Science isn't just a mere bunch of facts. Science is about the way we think about the world, the way we question the world, the way we communicate about the world. And that piece alone, developing that, is a huge piece of the new standards.
We're really looking at the next generation science standards to propel students into 21st century. So you're looking at college readiness, you're looking at career readiness.
Why is now the time for the next generation science standards? We're past the time for the next generation standards.
To be competitive globally, we need to prepare students.
We have to have as a solid, firm foundation that framework for K-12 science education from the scientific community.
I'm one of the writing team members, and my job is to assist with the development of the standards, which is connected to the framework.
Minnesota is a lead state, so as part of that, I've been meeting together groups. We have some groups that are working as reviewers of the standards. We have two other groups, one that's sort of dealing with communications with the business and industry side, also looking at what it would take to implement the standards in Minnesota. And then another group who is looking at communications mostly with educators, and especially around the framework document.
Our standards need to be able to help our students face a world that we're not currently facing right now.
We're never going to reach perfection, I don't believe, because the world is changing. We need to continue evolving and changing with our ever-changing world.
When a teacher loves something, the students are going to love it too.
Teachers have to be open-minded. They have to be willing to take a risk. They have to be willing to get messy. They're going to have to be willing to let the students lead a little.
This is it's a very hard thing. It's a very critical thing. but it's a very rewarding thing too.
It's awesome to see the kids working together and talking to each other and supporting what they think is evidence-based. It is so major cool.
It's going to change the way that I teach, and it's scary, and yet at the same time it's exciting. I think it's going to reinvigorate my teaching.
I'm very excited to see that transition, that change to actually doing science.
The human capital is the most prized resource that this nation possesses, and we can ill afford the luxury of not developing it to its maximum capacity.
So here's just an example of one small comparison from the 2001-2006 on the right standards to the 2016 Massachusetts standards that were adopted in support of the Next Generation Science Standards. So without reading all of it, the 2001-2006 includes 3 standards that you see up there. There was one in grades 3 through 5, one in grades 6 through 8, and one in high school. All 3 of those have been put together, combined, to create one large standard that is expected of our 4th grade students in this new set of standards. So there's some pretty dramatic changes happening in science. They're very exciting. Our team was really invigorated, as they spoke to in the video, but there is that angst amongst the general population of teachers, and we'll share a little bit about that. But you can see that working with a curriculum that was adopted prior to these 2001-2006 standards really is no longer a viable option. So again, our current Scott Forsman science texts were published in 1999. Since then, I think we were looking at the last pilot and adoption was when really we worked with our last set of
97, 98.
Our last scope and sequence. There may have been one just shortly after that. So what's happened is it's kind of been coming apart slowly at the seams, so that we have a lot of discrepancies between classrooms, between grade levels, and between schools. People kind of have the things that are their favorites and the things they like to work on. They do take a look at the standards and see how they can fill them in here and there, but with those progressions that were grades 3 through 5 and grades K through 2, it was easy to say, well, I'm sure maybe the next grade or the grade before me will cover that. So there's a lot of variation amongst the schools right now. The new standards have some very major, significant conceptual shifts from, as they said in the video, it used to be about knowing the facts. It used to be about a lot of memorizing, about a lot of reading and remembering, and now they're asking that students really need to be able to figure things out. This is that shift to those 21st century learners. And it used to be a lot of reciting and being able to repeat back, and now there is such a high need for reasoning and understanding. Just a quick another example. Massachusetts has created a crosswalk, which is basically from their 2001-2006 standards for teachers to use to see where their standards fall in the 2016. And I don't expect you to be able to read this all. There's a lot of small print there. But if you take a look at the highlight, I actually asked someone on the committee just to highlight where there's been a change. So those highlights either say in earlier grades or in later grades. The right side, again, is the 2001-2006 standards, and the left side are the 2016 standards. Anywhere there's a yellow highlight in the middle means that teachers are being expected to teach something different. It's either going to earlier grades or later grades. And if I slide this up, this is pre-K to 2 right here. So all of those yellows are a change. And then 3 through 5. Oops. And again, a little bit of the same, maybe a few more spots, but significant changes for teachers and their expectations at their grade level. And those are just the content expectations that have changed, and that's not even following that whole idea of building in the inquiry and the thinking base that's a lot different than what we had prior. Let's see if I can get back to...
And the engineering.
So the committee took on the task of reviewing a number of programs. We had representatives from several of these companies come and visit. We did a site visit in West Springfield, and we had a lot of sample materials sent to us. The three at the top, Discovery Education Science Textbook, TCI, the Teachers Curriculum Institute, and FOSS, Full Option Science System, were the three that we agreed to look at most closely. Mostly because when we looked at the next three on that list, they were all textbook-based programs, and if you notice the publication dates of all of those, they predate the Next Generation Science Standards. There are no new straight curriculums that are just textbooks that are post Next Generation Standards, which would be post our new science standards as well for Massachusetts. There's some criteria that we used for our program selection, the things that we were looking at. Again, that inquiry base that the new standards demand, a strong science literature connection, and a writing component, because as they mentioned in the video and we've heard through all of the presentations this evening, we need a way to integrate our subjects in order to make sure that our students are receiving the strongest education possible. Other things on there. We also, it was important to us that there was a teacher-friendly setup and that it was easy for teachers to get into, that there were clear and comprehensive teacher support materials, hands-on investigations and activities. The digital resource component was also important. Very aligned with the state science and engineering standards, which was challenging because they were just adopted in the middle of our process, but we had a good sense of what they would look like. A lot of differentiation we were looking for, and appropriate quality assessment resources. So we found that in the FOSS program. The FOSS Next Generation has already been unified or coordinated with the Next Generation Science Standards, so it would have very few differences in our Massachusetts state standards. And this is another quick video. Hopefully I can, just a minute and a half.
My favorite thing about teaching with FOSS is the excitement in my classroom. I think any child learns better, remembers better when they are doing something active.
I think the biggest surprise is the depth of understanding that the children took away from the experiences.
We design things as engineers.
My students love it when it's time for science.
I get to build stuff, not just read about everything.
My students are so engaged in the investigation, they don't even realize how much reading and writing they're doing.
I'm learning to think like a scientist.
These kids are really going to change how you teach, not only in science, but other subjects as well.
FOSS believes that science goes beyond the pages in a book or words on a screen. It's about experiences and critical thinking skills. It's about science concepts taught alongside the practices of science and engineering. FOSS is a comprehensive science program that has everything you need: hands-on, print, technology, to successfully engage students for all classroom environments. FOSS is truly the program for the next generation.
FOSS has had a tremendous impact on my kids.
I'm learning to think like a scientist.
You don't need to be an expert to use the FOSS kit, you just need to be a teacher.
So that was a priority to us, that idea that you don't need to be a science expert. The teacher materials are so fully developed that as piloters, we were able to see that we could, even without additional training, the directions were so thorough, the materials were so well organized that everything you needed was right there. But the kids had just a thorough excitement and energy that we haven't seen in a long time around some of them, without a lot of additional outside teacher time and research and materials of our own. Whoops, sorry. Let's try again. There we go. So these are some notes from the publisher's presentation. She did come out and speak with us on FOSS Next Generation. And she let us know that FOSS is funded by a National Science Foundation grant. That means it's tested and checked yearly. Well, that was a big plus for the team. They were working, at the time she met with us in October, they were working on a Massachusetts correlation guide in anticipation of the adoption. So they were already making that guide knowing that the standards were going to be adopted January. Their offices and the development, all their warehouses, customer service are out of Nashua, New Hampshire. We've since found that they're live animals, and the materials that you order separately that you pay for in advance, but you keep these cards so that you know when you need the materials. Obviously, when you're going to have live animals in your room, you need them at the time you're going to be using them. So we have butterflies, we have mealworms, pill bugs. That office, actually, that warehouse is in the Berkshires. So there are other districts similar to Longmeadow, some of those that are using FOSS. Andover just adopted FOSS last year. Arlington, Wellesley, Lexington, Chelmsford, and Westboro were other communities that we learned to use FOSS. And as the representative told us, it's the longest adopted science program in the country. She said districts that adopt FOSS stay with FOSS. Just a couple of examples from our piloting. One of the things that was important to us that FOSS takes science learning into our natural environment. We didn't get an outside picture, but this is a second grader in Mrs. Mengwasser's class, and they collected rocks in their schoolyard. So he's working on identifying those. And on the right-hand side is a page of his science journal. Journaling is a huge part of the program as well. In a third grade class, they realized that this is science, not math, but yet there was math included in engineering included in all the investigations. So this would be a response sheet from the program. And a third grader in Mrs. Kraft's Center School, third grade, wrote that on this paper they had to reply about how much force is student B applying. She said 500 units of force because she's using the same 500 units. Because if she was doing less, she would be pushed back, but if she used more, she would push student A. So there's a lot of reasoning and understanding going on. Do you want to speak anything to that? I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I thought that was an interesting comment when we were meeting, that that is a direct quote. You know, they said, wait a minute, this is science, this isn't math. And I said, well, they actually can connect, you know. So I think that talks to the point. And we've talked as a committee about that integration and how it'll be important, integrating math, but also reading and writing. They can all sort of come together, and I think they will come together in a more meaningful way through this program.
And again, speaking of that integration, here's just some examples of the integration with literacy. FOSS includes science resources books. This is a cover of one, and this is just a quick page there. And they also use science notebooks throughout the program. That comment there in the writing section, which says FOSS notebooks have been excellent vehicles for supporting both scientific reasoning and writing instruction. That was a response from Andover, who we had written to and asked them some questions about their implementation of the program. And this was their science coordinator, what he had to say about how teachers were responding to using FOSS. Interestingly, they also are involved in a balanced literacy program. They've also adopted Lucy Calkins and new literacy instruction in the past couple of years, as well as new math instruction. So they were in a very similar place to us, and they're really enjoying the implementation of FOSS. They also had a lot of support and ideas for us in how to make that implementation work best for teachers and schools. Here's fourth graders in my classroom. We were working on lighting bulbs. So FOSS provides those rich hands-on experiences that develop problem-solving skills that will empower students to participate in our increasingly scientific and technological world. It was very difficult as a teacher to step back, hand them that D-cell battery, 2 wires, and a bulb, and see if they could light the bulb. And they all managed to do it without any support from me. And then they're supported by things like this page from their notebook. Now that you've done it, write a prediction for each circuit. In the small box, if you think it will light, write yes. If you think it won't light, write no. And then they had to go back and try each of them. So you can see that this student's initial interpretation or initial prediction, and then what happened, and then they wrote some explanations of why or why not and what they think changed their thinking. Again, they have a rich, accessible, integrated technology. They have ebooks that include highlighted and spoken text, so when students are reading them, it will actually read to them word by word, highlighted. They have online activities for differentiation, so we can meet the needs of all of our levels of learners. They have streaming videos for teachers to use and for support in their classroom, online assessment and reporting, and teacher e-guides, preparation videos, and all of your interactive whiteboard lessons as well. All of those are provided free for the life of the program, so there's no additional cost to that. This is their recommended scope and sequence. FOSS is organized in kits. There's an example of one over on the side over here. All of the teachers that are piloting are actually using their kits right now. But I do have a lot of teacher materials and guides that will be left for you to peruse for 2 weeks, is my understanding. Every grade level is organized into 3 kits: a physical science, earth science, and life science kit. Each kit is between 2 and 4 boxes of materials. So they're very, very thorough. They also pride themselves on the connection between the kits, that they're built upon each other and across the strands, and they move students progressively from grades K through 5. A couple of testimonials. Mrs. Marinoni's Blueberry class. As a student, I'm excited to learn. My favorite subject is science, but it's hard to learn new things about science when the books that you read are outdated. Or are dated. The facts in the book are old, so we can't get the education we need. Also, we have Science MCAS coming up, and we won't be able to get a good grade if all we have to learn is old facts from books from 1998. The new books are fun to read and have new and good information in them. 5th grade needs new books. We have one more. Dear School Committee, 5th grade would really love it if we could have the FOSS science books to keep. The old books are very outdated. They have drawings in them and they are written on. It dates back to 1999. Longmeadow is a STEM community. We should have new science books. Sincerely, 5th grade. So the cost for full implementation, I slid that right in there. Apologize. It's very small up there. Basically, if using full implementation would look like 3 kits at each grade level for each teacher in each of the 3 elementary schools. It's a very lofty goal, as is shown by the yellow price tag here of $175,813.39. It does include some significant savings over doing it in a different scenario, but just to show you what is included in that cost, that's those 3 kits per grade level, 3 boxes per kit. The kits include 32 student textbooks, so that's more than an average class size, a big book for grades K through 2, all of the permanent equipment to do every investigation with 32 students, and enough consumable materials for 3 classes or 3 years of 32 students. And again, there's that premium access to FOSS Web that never expires, and we never pay extra for all of the online materials. That cost also includes the living materials, those butterflies and mealworms and pill bugs or whatever was included in the life science for each grade. And 9 or more, they are very flexible with their professional development, days of professional development that never expire. We do certainly understand that Longmeadow, as every district, has only one pie that needs to be split. Here is the rollout for the fully funded science program, and this was on some of the recommendations from Andover. And that would be that if we had the materials, that FOSS resources would become available to teachers to begin looking at. And in August, teachers would use an existing science. So they wouldn't be responsible for on their own time without that professional development time. We're really tight in the beginning of the year. They wouldn't be responsible for beginning a new kit, but they could possibly start looking into it, or teachers who were ready would be able to. Fall of 2006, when they get their training on that first new kit, would enable them to be prepared to start 1 new unit in the 2nd trimester. So basically it would start 2nd and 3rd trimester, and then in the following year they would begin the 1st trimester and we would be fully implemented. And that would allow for a training for each unit. We've come up with some ideas for modified implementation. There were lots and lots of ideas among the group. They felt so strongly about this program that they were willing to really do what they could to cut and share and think about the ways that we could make that work. When we presented that to the principals, they said, we need to present both because it's not going to be easy to do it with less. And the idea of the reduced cost implementation is that then it needs more than 1 year. and we can never depend, I know it's difficult to depend upon that money for following years. So this was a reduced implementation at $68,000, and that was the modified implementation would mean that there were shared kits and books between classrooms, possibly between schools as well. There would be limited online ebook access for students, so they would either be shared access or access possibly only for some classes at a time. We would need to adapt that scope and sequence with different short-term variations. So those were some of those things we were thinking about, where one school might be teaching a life science while another school would be teaching a physical science, or one teacher might be teaching life science while another taught physical science. Because the kits are all separate from each other, there would be a possibility, but it would leave that scope and sequence different between the three schools, or between the grade levels, and even between different teachers in the same grade level. There would be, we would be looking for further funding in years 2 and 3 to be able to implement that full curriculum and allow the district-wide scope and sequence to get everyone on that same page. And then there is a higher cost for those materials when they're spread over 3 years. So it would be that 68 times 3, closer to 200,000 rather than that 175,000 loss of some of those discounts and pricing that she was able to offer us. And there's some of our students, and they were working on some of their FOSS units already. Anything I missed? So I certainly can share this in Google Slides. I know there's a lot of information in there, and a lot of it's tiny, so you need a bigger look at it. I also am right at Blueberry, so I'm available at other times for questioning. I'm happy to take questions now, but I also know that you have a very full evening and agenda. So.
I just want to quickly thank you and the rest of the committee for all your work. I
Thank you.
think that Julie and I had the same book, so I think it's
Her
time.
name might also be in that.
It might be in a different book, but
Yes.
same year.
Yes. Yes.
So, obviously, thank you for all of the work. And, the fact that you're enthusiastic about this, I think, makes it a lot easier for us to, get behind it. Which typically, when textbooks come to us or curriculums come to us, we're kind of like, oh, okay, great. But no, I mean, the enthusiasm that you're showing, that the kids are showing, I think is fantastic. I also like the price tag, but certainly, I think. Anybody want to donate it? But obviously, I think at least I'll commit to doing our best to try to figure out a way to take care of what you need, with what we have available. It might not be easy, but certainly, the enthusiasm that you've shown is enough to sell me on it. So.
I'd like to thank the committee. I know under the leadership of Susan and Teresa and all of the teachers on the committee, you've done a phenomenal job. Your passion for science is contagious. You spent many, many hours, I've seen you behind closed doors, thinking everything through, looking at programs, and really doing what's best for students. We greatly appreciate it. I think one of my passions is STEM, because I do think there is going to be a critical shortage of people, and that passion needs to be ignited in the elementary schools. And bringing forward the FOSS program is certainly going to do that. So thank you for your work and your dedication to science.
Thank you.
I agree. I mean, we saw Eric Lesser sat here and told us in the next 10 years the amount of STEM jobs that are going to be available in Massachusetts. So that's our elementary schools, kids right now. So I think this is a great time to bring this program in.
Absolutely.
And the program you picked, hands-on learning, to me just looks fabulous. So I do have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So it looks like, were you guys piloting parts of it now, just to kind of, as part of your
Yes, we
research?
piloted components of FOSS as well as components of TCI. That was the Teachers Curriculum Institute. That's a new program. Their science curriculum only came out this year. We found that very textbook laden and worksheet laden, and that was really a lot of the reason why we went towards the FOSS. They do have kits, but comparatively to purchase just the textbooks and the online component of their program would cost us the same amount as purchasing the full kits for the FOSS program. FOSS has a lot more science support behind it as well.
And are there ongoing costs associated
Yep, and the principals had asked us to look into that, and so, again, those kits, if they were provided to each individual teacher, they would provide you with at least enough materials for 3 years. It would actually be further than 3 years because there's 32 of everything that you need, or enough for 32 students. So if you have a class of 20, then you'd probably get about 5, almost 6 years out of them. The additional cost would be just the consumable materials, and I have in all the price lists where those are, but basically we looked up every kit and the consumable cost price list, and they averaged between, many of them don't have any consumables at all, and some of them were 25, 50, and I think 100 to 125 was the highest consumable list that we found. It was for products like tape and black paper and things like that that most likely would fit in with our other curriculum needs.
I'm just trying to, because I know the math curriculum that we
yes
is now 12,000 or per school.
Right.
And so I'm just trying to figure out what we have to think about.
And I think grouping creatively, like I think that 3-year projection is for groups when you group 2 kids together with experiments and inquiry, and so if you group 3, it would last even longer. So, and you order the creatures; they're mostly bugs. There's no mammals, right? Yeah. I don't think so. As you need them. So.
Those are consumable.
Does it align with the transition into middle school?
It does. It does. And we need something to get ready for our new MCAS. And so the MCAS board will give us a couple of years to ease into the new standards, but they will be testing, on them. And if we're not ready, our scores in science and technology are going to reflect that. Yeah. And I just want to say thank you to this committee. Really, they're a committee of leaders. They have done a phenomenal job. They have gotten their hands dirty themselves and dug around in their kits. And, they are always happy to meet. They met with lots of candy. I think that was helpful. But they were gracious with their time and their energy, and they're enthusiastic. And I think that's going to make a huge difference in the implementation of science. Yeah.
And just to add on that, the team members were all willing to continue our work as far as being involved in professional development. We were just discussing how we have every grade represented, so that professional development, in addition to FOSS coming out and seeing us, we would be able to support the district.
Yeah, and there are places to integrate into Writers and Readers Workshop, which are great.
We've talked about
so we have
summer work and how to make that happen.
So if we get them, there is some summer money that has been set aside for summer work and curriculum and cross-curriculum units and looking at things like that.
And then John. I was just going to say that was a very thorough presentation, so I really appreciate that. I think you hit on almost everything I would have asked you. So the only question I have for you is MCAS 2.0. How are they going to deal with, if it veers more towards Park or more towards kind of the MCAS testing regime now? Sure. Did they say anything about that as far as, let's say it's exactly like Park versus something closer to MCAS. Did they discuss that with you?
So, in my understanding, the MCAS 2.0 right now, that's addressing the Common Core, the Massachusetts version of the Common Core standards, and those are your English language arts and your mathematics standards. The science standards are still addressed under our state
old MCAS
testing.
Okay. All right, that's good.
But they will adjust that state testing, and it takes between 2 and 3 years for them to adjust the testing to match.
Supposedly.
The new standards. Yes.
And there will be more inquiry-based questions on that, the new assessment.
Absolutely.
Okay.
A lot more sympathy.
Can I just ask one question? Can we put on the agenda for next meeting that we talk about the budget implications and whether, how we would roll this out if we could roll it out? I know we can't do that tonight, but.
Thank you for your presentation. I enjoyed it. I was struck by the advertisement there. It says, we learn by doing. Well, that goes all the way back to John Dewey. And haven't you been doing that already, learning by doing? Well,
I guess.
To what extent is this program going to offer more experiments for hands-on for the children than what you're doing now?
Sure. Okay. I'm Beth Mingwasser, by the way. I teach at Center, grade 2. Yeah. And for many years, I've been at Blueberry Hill School. I was on this first science committee back in 1997 when we adopted this program. I've always had to implement for the engineering and hands-on component. Our last program did it minimally, but you had to really have a passion for science to go above and beyond the textbook. And for many years, I taught my students about rocketry, and we had the bungee rockets. So many of the Blueberry kids out there back from 1996 to, what year did you take over for me? Yeah, have had an exceptional opportunity to do some engineering. I also brought in the Iditarod and taught them about the Iditarod, and we did engineering with the idea of pulling sleds. So the old program, you really had to pull in your own passion and interests. This program has everything aligned by grade, so any teacher at any grade level can pull out the manual, and there's hands-on learning that they don't have to go and create. They don't have to go and source. And so every kid in every elementary school here in Longmeadow will get the same science experience.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Again, thank you so much. You put a lot of hard work and effort, and we thank you for that.
Thank you.
Changing up the agenda just a little bit more, because I'm sure Taylor would like to get home at some point this evening as well. I'd like to move it to the budget discussion with the middle school team discussion, and then it will evolve into the special education budget discussion. So, Taylor, I will turn it over to you, please.
Can you?
Oh, can you?
Oh, thank you. Before I pull this up, I just want to say thank you to all the Williams staff and the parents that have come out tonight. I know everyone has a lot going on in the evening time, but it just shows what a great community Williams Middle School has from students, teachers, and parents. So I do thank you for giving up your evening tonight to speak on behalf of Williams Middle School. So we're back here again, and so one of the big things that we're looking at is class sizes. Assistant Superintendent Mazza should have given you a document that I created. One of the things that we've been discussing is like averages, and what I did is we have the averages, and in middle school they can fluctuate, and so what I decided to do was to actually take what the actual class sizes would be. And I just want you to know that this is something that myself and the assistant principal will be working on all summer to plan for next year. So this isn't something that is just you can just quickly whip together and say, here you go. It's going through the numbers, tweaking it to ensure like all students can be where they should be at all times, and basically how to make the class sizes pretty even. And sometimes that's not possible, but I'm going to show you what exactly class sizes would be through the hypothetical scenarios that the school committee asked last time when when Principal Allen presented her proposal not to have the team. I should know this, but what number is this again? 15. 15.
Next time. Maybe that's
All right. So again, hopefully by the end of tonight, we'll all be experts on middle school scheduling. But like I said, this is a pretty in-depth process. This isn't something that we can just say, done, this is easy, let's move on. What I have before you, and it should be on your first piece of paper, is the current master schedule for Williams Middle School. Right now we have a 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade teams. We also have a 7-8 team. Teachers teach 5 sections a day. That means five classes. In the 7-8 team, they teach 3 sections of 8th grade and 2 sections in 7th grade. That is how they're split. So when making a schedule, there's 2 things that I have to keep in mind. One, if you look at the period, so let's say for here, period 2 in 7th grade, I need to make sure that in this column, there is currently 118 students in Williams Middle School in 7th grade today. I need to know that 118 students are somewhere. It's either ELA, math, science, social studies, or foreign language. So that vertical column needs to add up to 118. Also, at the same time, I need to take in consideration that a subject teacher, such as ELA, sees 118 students throughout the entire day, basically through the 5 sections that they teach. But one thing you'll notice here is it equals 86. That's how many kids are on, right now, this grade 7 team. If you look below, there are 32 students on the 7-8 team, meaning there are 32 students divided by the 2 sections. So now that taking that into consideration, I have to start plugging in where kids go. And so one of the basically the biggest drivers as to where I can determine kids go is math. We have 2 math levels in both grades. We have 7-1 and 7-2 in 7th grade. We have pre-algebra and algebra in 8th grade. So when they come from 6th grade to 7th grade, it's going to be determined whether they're in 7-1 or 7-2. Currently, we have 56 students enrolled in Math 7-1, and we have 61 students enrolled in 7-2. So in Math 7-1, I have 1, 2, 3 sections that I can put those 56 kids. That's what it is. 56 kids can only go in those 3 sections. In Math 7-2, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 sections that I can put 61 students. So right there, those numbers I'll just put in. The second factor that comes into play is foreign language. If you notice, in 7th grade, we have 2 sections of French. But if I actually scroll down here, by the way, this is the 8th grade. You'll notice I only have 1 section of French. Okay? So that comes into play as well. So once I've figured out math and French, I now can start putting kids into ELA, science, and social studies. And so this is how I get those numbers. And thanks to the Excel formulas that do all the calculations for me, but it definitely helps. One thing that you'll notice is that down here in other, that means that these kids are not in any of these classes. They're in a pull-out setting, and it could range from a pull-out math, ELA, and other programs that we have. So that's what the current 7th grade looks like. Our current 8th grade, we have 140 kids as of today. The same thing is instead of 2 sections on the 7-8 team, we have 3 sections. You'll notice in ELA, we have 1, 2, and 3. One thing that I do want you to know is that right here in grade 8 and in grade 7 on the 7-8 team is that we have common planning time. This is really important for the middle school model. This is the middle school model, is it allows 4 teachers, 4 academic, not academic, but math, English, science, or social studies teachers to be able to meet every day to talk about children and how they're doing. Are they making progress? It really focuses on the child. And so this is really important to take into consideration when I talk about the middle school model, that they have that common planning time every day. So pull on my cheat sheet here. So right now, looking at 7th and 8th grade currently, in 7th grade, we have 118 kids, and the class size ranges from 13 to 23. It's a big range group, but it's because it's driven by math, foreign language, and other factors such as pull-out and things like that. In grade 8, we have 140 students. That's our biggest class. It ranges from 12 to 22. And then one thing that has been talked about by our 6th grade teachers is our 6th grade has currently 126 students as of today. You'll notice the class sizes range from 21 to 27. The 27 is in our science class, and that's due to there's 5 places that the kids can be. That's what it unfortunately comes out to. Is it ideal? No, but the teachers are fantastic and they make do with what they can. So that is what we currently have at Williams if you walked in there today. So on the next page, we're going to be looking at grade 7. So on this page, there's 4 hypothetical scenarios that have been brought up through the course of discussion. The first scenario is if we eliminate the 7-8 team altogether. So, by the way, with 7-1 and 7-2 projections, these are ballpark estimates that I've talked to the math teachers, and they roughly said that usually it's pretty much even, but with 7-2 on the higher end. So looking at the math, if we eliminate the 7-8 team, we only have two places to put our 7-1 students. So therefore, if we have 59 kids, 2 places to put them, we have classes of 30 and 29. In math 7-2, we have 67 kids, but we have 3 places to put them, and we have class sizes from 23 to 22. Also, one thing to take in consideration is the foreign language. We'll only be able to offer 1 French period. This was a very scientific survey of asking the kids who's interested in French, raise your hand, who's interested in Spanish, raise your hand. We will be doing scheduling in the next few weeks. Unfortunately, I do not have the specifics now, but roughly this is consistent with the previous years. So again, taking in consideration in 7th grade, we need to make sure that every kid is somewhere in this specific period, and then also the teachers see every single student this way. One thing that I'm not including is the pullout of where it was highlighted in yellow on the previous page, for the simplification of this. If every kid had to be somewhere, every period, and every teacher had to see every kid, this is what it would look like. So looking at the first scenario, we have a few things to take in consideration. Yes, we will have highly qualified teachers. Yes, it adheres to the middle school model, but we have large class sizes. Class sizes are going to range from 22 to 30. The second scenario that was asked, well, it's not scenario, it's actually what we currently have. And if we keep the 7-8 team, what will happen is, instead of in 8th grade like we have now, 7th grade will have 3 sections, because next year our 7th grade class is going to be the largest with 126 students. And in this second proposal, or keeping the full team, we will have highly qualified teachers. It'll follow the middle school model, and we'll have small class sizes. Class sizes are going to range from 8 to 22. This, one thing I do want to point out is this 7-8 team has 38 students assigned to it. On this 7-8 team, it's going to work out that they will not be taking French. They will be all Spanish kids. So therefore, if you notice in Block 2, 19 and 19 class sizes, because there's no Spanish being offered this block. So this is where it starts to get, really starts to get tricky, and I have to figure out where can I put these kids if they can't take this class, but they can take that class. But as you notice during the day, well, in period 2, you have 2 classes that there's only 2 places that they can be. In period 3, there's 3 places that can be. In period 4, there's 1, 2, and then also you'll notice there's a Spanish class offered. So therefore, I can put 16 of the 7-8 team kids in Spanish, and so therefore there's 3 places. So that's why this number is so much higher than this number. And so because 19 kids in both classes took math and science, they can't take it for the rest of the day. They have to take something else. So that's why those numbers decrease. If you look above here, the class sizes in the grade 7 team range from about 14 to 20. So keeping in mind with the math and the French, and keeping that in mind. The third scenario is the 0.6 scenario. There's a few things that come up while talking about the 0.6 model. Is we have a rotating schedule. And with the 0.6 model, in order to ensure that there's a class available for the students, I need to stagger those teachers. Meaning, if you look at ELA, in the 7-8 model, this is 0.6, that means they're going to teach 2 sections in 7th grade and 1 section in 8th grade. So with the 2 sections, you'll notice that ELA is going to teach here for a 2nd and 3rd. And then you'll notice that social studies will teach here and here. You'll notice math will teach here, and science will teach here and here. This does not follow the middle school model. There will be no common planning time for these teachers if we go to this 0.6 model. That means that they will not be able to talk about students. They will not be able to provide before, or they will be able to provide before and after school help, but it's going to rotate because if they're teaching block 2 and 3 on today, tomorrow they're going to be teaching block 2 and 3 in the afternoon. So those are some things to really take into consideration while we talk about the .6 team. The class sizes for the .6 team do range from 17 to 22. That is ideal, but at the same time, the other factors do need to be considered as well. And then finally, last school committee meeting, somebody asked about what if we have one full-time science teacher and one full-time math teacher. I just want to make it very clear, I do not like this proposal at all, just because it does give a good class sizes to science and math, but it really focuses on STEM, science and math. But looking at what it does to the ELA and to the social studies numbers, it balloons them. Because even though there's 2 places each period to go for math and science, there's only 1 place to go for ELA and 1 place to go for social studies. And so and this is where all the writing, the reading, everything that we've been working so hard on is basically being brushed aside for math and science. And every subject is extremely important in these scenarios. So those are the 3 scenarios for 7th grade. In this last one, the class sizes range from 11 to 28. Again, math and science class sizes will range from 13 to 25. ELA and social studies class sizes will range from 23 to 28. So that is looking at that. And then 8th grade is pretty similar, but I do want to point out, and this is the last page that I want to point out, is if you go to the .6 proposal, because the .6 teachers will be teaching 2 sections in 7th grade, I can make a small team. In 8th grade, they're only going to be teaching 1 section. So therefore, I cannot group 20 kids to be together, every block together every day. And so what I will have to do is I'll have to create 1 gigantic 8th grade team. That means 8 teachers in 8th grade. It's great, but you have to realize that those 4 teachers, the .6 teachers, will not have common planning time with the 8th grade team. They will not be able to have that face-to-face meeting unless somebody stays beyond the workday, which I can't ask a teacher to do. They will not be able to speak face-to-face about kids, to troubleshoot problems, to really work on what's best for the students. And so this is really big. This is a really big factor to keep in mind while you have this conversation about the .6 team. So, I threw a lot of information at you, and like I said, I live this. This makes total sense to me. We work on it throughout the summer, and I do want to say that when Principal Allen made her proposal to the school committee, I had a conversation with my school council. I had a conversation with my staff. I gave them this data. I said, go through it, look at it. Is there anything that I'm missing, we're missing? Is there anything different that we can do? We've had lots of dialogues, and I think that by the teachers coming today and speaking, I think they made their point very clear.
Thank you for going back and coming up with this whole thing. And I certainly have a better understanding of scheduling at the middle schools, which is great.
There's going to be a pop quiz on that later.
I'm not sure I understood them this well when I was in middle school. So do we have any idea what the incoming 6th grade?
108.
108. And do we have an idea what it looks like for the rising 5th grade?
From my understanding, from the data that was given, it plateaus out to the 110 range for Williams Middle School.
So is it fair to say that if we proceed in keeping the team intact for this year, that we're looking at a 1-year sort of scenario where class sizes are fantastic for kids, but probably unreasonably low in terms of planning and staffing?
So what exactly, what's your exact question?
So the question is it fair to say that keeping class, like that we're a year from now, that the class size is not going to be 11?
We will, next year's 7th grade class will be then the 8th grade class, and we will still have the 126 students.
Right, but in terms of the rising 7th grade,
As of today, this morning, the number was 108.
So in 2 years from now, we can basically say that we'll potentially be able to say that we're not going to be in a position where we have such low class sizes that it's.
So we do need to take into consideration of the kids moving in and out. And that's definitely, it's a wild card. That's a factor
Sure.
that we need to take in. And so unfortunately, I can't give you that specific data.
Right.
But looking at past trends last year.
I won't hold you to it either.
Last year was an unusually large year. We between entering and exiting through the 3 grade levels, we had an increase of by 22 kids in our school. But looking at the 3 years prior to last year, it was averaging out to just 8 kids, and it was pretty consistent. 8 kids, we gained a total of 8 kids through the 3 grade levels. So normally, I would say it would be safe to say 8 to 10. But last year was a interesting year when we had an additional 22 kids.
Can I ask what potentially could be an unpopular question?
I'm sorry?
Can I ask what might be an unpopular question?
Depends. Yeah, no.
How many
You can ask,
how
it doesn't
many
mean he'll answer.
how many students at Williams are currently enrolled who are actually living in Glenbrook, and how many students at Williams are currently staff members' children?
I actually don't know that off the top of my head.
Not many, if any.
Okay.
We've been pretty consistent in placing non-resident students at Glenbrook.
Okay.
And we've been pretty consistent on that.
Good to know. That's good to know. Okay.
So, Rose?
So the enrollment figures you're looking at for the future don't include that potential. I mean, basically, a lot of the private schools end right before middle school in the area. So we get that bump because of the private schools mainly? Is that what you're thinking?
To be honest, looking at the past data, really, last year we had 10 kids enter, and this year we had 10 6th graders enter, 2 6th graders leave. In 7th grade, we had 10 enter, 3 leave. And in the 8th grade, we had 7 enter, and we haven't had any leave. So, but in previous years, it's been single digits entering and exiting.
Okay. But the numbers that we're looking at don't include that extra bump.
The numbers that we're looking at are as of the kids currently in Williams
Blueberry
Middle
and
School
Center,
today.
yeah. And coming from Blueberry and Center.
Yes, yes.
So it doesn't include
So they're
that 10.
currently
So the
enrolled in Blueberry
108 is
Center.
really probably 118 potentially, based on averages in the past.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So what's your recommendation?
My recommendation is the same as my staff's and my school council's, is to keep everything the way that it is.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
So is there one teacher in every class? Like when it gets above 20, is there ever more than one teacher in a class? Like you've got this, I'm looking at the 6th grade where you've got 27 science kids. Is there more than one teacher in that class?
It depends. Sometimes there are support services, but no, it is one teacher that is assigned to those, 27 students assigned to that one teacher, yes.
And when they do their common planning time, do they also have, is there like a prep time that we can?
That is, every teacher is entitled to a prep and a duty period, and that duty period is we focus on team meetings and basically what we really focus on in the middle school is really talking about the children and how to best reach them.
So if there were .6 team, neither of those would coincide?
So if it was .6, my understanding contractually would be they would teach 3 periods and be entitled to 1 prep period. And those would be at different times during the day. And in the scheduling, there would be, I would not be able to align those prep periods or even the duty periods at the same time because the kids need to be somewhere during those periods.
So I just wanted to say thank you for the enormous amount of work. And I know that, you know, asking you to add in pull-out services for projections is extremely difficult, but I think we heard from the 6th grade teachers that there are quite a number of 6th grade students who are on IEPs and 504s, which would lead me to believe that there are, if that number is that high, that there would be a number of those students being pulled out for services.
really reluctant to make that massive generalization. Each student has individual needs, and it varies. So it could be 2 kids for a pullout. It could be, and in one class we have 15 kids.
Right, so that, but I guess I'm generalizing to the fact of 6th grade teachers have stated that there are a large number of students who receive pullout services. So therefore,
There's only 8.
They said that there's a large number of students who are on 504s or have IEPs.
right,
But not
but
full.
that also may include having an aide in the room,
So,
correct?
so yes, but those paraprofessionals are assigned to specific students to provide additional support. Granted, we have fantastic paraprofessionals that go above and beyond, but the expectation that they work with all children is something that we can't make.
Right, no, I understand that, but I'm just trying to generalize, if there are areas where we've got, 3 to 15 students being pulled out for services, that may happen to coincide with the classes of 27 and 30.
On here on the current, if you look, there's actually 2 blocks, block 1, or period 1 and period 7, that there are no kids that are pulled out. Block 3 and block 5, there's 3 to 5 kids.
Right.
And in extension, there's 15 kids because that's where they receive really specialized instruction. And so this, if you look in the current 8th grade, we have 16 and 14, but also keep in mind, this is a class of 140. And then in 7th grade, we have 15 in really one block, and 3 and 2 in the other. So maybe for one block, we could have a lot of numbers,
Right.
but really, it's, I don't know until I work with my assistant principal to figure out where the kids will really be.
Right, no, I understand that. I'm just saying that some of those class sizes will be lower, have the potential to be lower because of pullout. Sue?
A small potential, 2 kids potentially, but the majority of the students are inclusion students.
Right.
And we're looking to give them a double dose, not take them out of their math class.
Right, but
and then-
I guess what I'm getting at is to say that we've got class sizes of, what I keep hearing is the fear of class sizes of 26, 27, 30. There's a chance that 2 or 3 students may not be in those
My
classes.
understanding is that the higher math class, the higher numbered math, 30 potentially in math, are the higher level math classes,
so
which are
yeah.
not likely to have pullout. If that makes any sense.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
'cause
no,
I'm
I'm
not-
just- yeah,
I was understanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those are
We already
29 and
went
30.
up that and down the other, just.
Oh, I figured you did. That's why I'm not an expert in the middle school schedule. Michelle?
I just want to ask Sue, so I think she said 504 and IEPs.
She did. I double checked it. There's about 22 IEP students right now,
Right.
and there's quite a few, 8 or so.
And
504 students.
I would imagine a lot of those don't necessarily get a paraprofessional. for
The majority
their-
of them don't.
Okay,
Right.
so they're not being pulled out, and they don't necessarily have somebody in the classroom that's tending to their special needs, specific,
correct.
other than the classroom teacher.
That's
So
correct.
she or
Well,
he is
on
bearing
occasion,
that.
the LLD teacher will co-teach a class with a regular teacher. I don't know what's slated for next year in that way. So.
How are we fitting 27 kids in a science classroom that I've heard only fits 24 or 22?
So 6th grade
Is
is
that a-
not because we have 3 science teachers in 7th and 8th grade, Williams Middle School is designed or only has 3 science labs with the lab tables. In 6th grade, they have science in what we would consider a traditional classroom, meaning that they don't have science lab tables.
So I know this was sent to Finance Sub. Has Finance Sub come up with a recommendation? Or a, okay.
No, just reviewed it and wanted to talk about it here more.
Okay.
All right, I mean, I don't know how much more time we actually have to spend on this because we heard loud and clear from our teachers and our principal what they want. We already have it budgeted for, so the question before us is, do we make a change that is going to cause a lot of disruption, or do we keep the status quo? And I think obviously we have our own budget issues that we need to deal with, but I think we all agreed on this the first time around, even though, a version of this the first time around. But I don't know if we have to kind of beat this thing to death any further. We know where the community is. We know where the parents are, the teachers,
Well,
the principal.
I think we agreed to it.
We know where most of us are.
We agreed to it in concept without knowing the numbers. Personally, sure, I would love it if my kids were in a class of 8, 9, or 11. But how is that fair to the kids who are in the classes of 20, 22? And that discrepancy within the same building, not even withstanding the discrepancy between our 2 middle schools. I still wonder how we can justify that.
So we've tried to clear up the discrepancy between the 2 middle schools.
And I'm not saying that Glenbrook's numbers are average middle school class sizes. What's concerning to me is at Williams, we have lower class sizes than we do at elementary, that we do at the high school. And how is that fair when we are looking at the needs of all students in Long Meadow?
No, I agree that there's obviously a cause for consideration when we're talking about, what some students in the particular building have access to versus what others do. But, I was talking with Taylor, off the record a little bit in Diane's office, and he said that really the only solution would be to redistrict the middle schools. That's the only way to equalize, which nobody at this table wants to do.
I wasn't a part of the group. That was just. Please don't. I do not support that.
He's not. He was saying that was the way that we solved that issue.
Yeah.
Now,
It wasn't a recommendation.
that is not a recommendation.
You're forgetting the idea of actually joining the middle schools
Right.
and have them all in one building.
So I want to be very clear. I am not recommending that. I'm just saying that if you're going to try to solve the discrepancy or try to equalize the numbers, that's the way that we should do it. I don't want to engage in that right now. And so, I know, well, it's just what he said.
No, I said the 7th grade is a bubble class, and if
Yeah.
we literally could take 17 kids, that would equalize everything. Again, that was a conversation between committee member Clark and I, and in no way.
Nothing he was presenting to us.
No.
Yeah, that was. But if that's that's a conversation I think for another time. But I think in terms of trying to get this settled, trying to secure, or at least put some security in the minds of our teachers, I'm just going to call the question.
So
I move that we don't do anything. Which is basically what that's what it is. So
Keep the full team
keep the full
at
team.
Williams School.
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor?
No discussion?
No,
I
no,
just want
no,
to say
she's-
something.
okay.
This
Oh,
is,
yes.
wait.
This is the call the question.
This is call the question.
Yeah, I'm calling the question.
Then we'll discuss,
Yeah.
right?
All right, sorry.
So I move to call the question.
Second.
Okay.
So,
So all in favor of calling the question?
Well, just because I'm concerned, I do want to file a disclosure that my son and 2 other students will be at Williams Middle School in the future. So I just want to make sure I did file a conflict of interest, and I just want to disclose that. I don't think it will interfere with my vote.
Actually, Liz, if you want to talk.
I'm abstaining because I don't want to vote on it.
Okay.
If we
But I
call the
wanna say
question.
something.
Well, if we call the question, there's no discussion after that. So
Right.
if we want
That's why I
people
was
to.
allowing Liz to speak before. So did you want to say something before calling the question?
I'll temporarily withdraw my
Thank
calling
you.
of the question so that Liz can speak.
Okay. I just want to, because I'm not going to vote on this, I just want to give details because we've heard a lot of numbers tonight. So one thing I want to point out, I think Janet said, is our 6th grade currently has high numbers, like the ones that would be proposed for if we did cut a team. So I'm just letting you know that that would be a comparable class size that our 6th grade is already having right now. Second, if we did eliminate that team, we would have around an extra $220,000 in our budget for something like a new science textbooks for elementary school kids. Because right now, we don't have that kind of money to spend on our science. The no change would be no change in our budget. .6 team would be $85,000, and with a science and a math teacher only, that would be $110,000. I just wanted everyone to know the money from that point of view for our finance committee is that, unfortunately, this is also a financial decision that we have to make. And obviously, nobody wants to cut teachers, but we also need to think of everybody in the school.
Michelle? I just want to go over, we got a, I think it was the like districts with the average class sizes, and I looked at that. And I picked the figure 25 because I think that our goal has been to stay around 22. I think going over 25 seems to be the standard that we try not to do. Out of that list, Andover, Hanover, Holliston, Marblehead, Reading, Wakefield, Wayland, Westwood, Wilmington, and Newton all had average class sizes of less than 25. If we cut this middle school team, the 7th grade will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 sections that are 25 or higher. So that, and then if you take into consideration that the DESE report card has our student-to-teacher ratio at 12.7 to 1, and the state average is 12.9 to 1. That's with our current staff. If we cut this, we're going to be above state average there too. And I think that's not a good thing when you're looking at report cards and you're thinking about moving to look and see that the class size in a town has more than state average. So those are the two data points that I noticed in looking at things, and I do, although we will have smaller class sizes with the team in some sections, that happens with scheduling, but the alternative is just much worse with those really high class sizes. So I do want to point that out, that while it's financial, we also have to keep the students in mind, and I think we're setting them up for a very difficult year, and the teachers in the classrooms are already, there's a lot of energy in them, so.
And I think just to point out with the...
Well, does anybody else want to talk? Because you keep talking after each one of us, and I think maybe, he's had his hand up after mine.
Okay, Russ.
What I was going to say is the middle school team model is a really kind of inefficient scheduling model. It's great for kids, but it's difficult to schedule. The fact that we have 2 middle school buildings makes that even worse because we don't have the flexibility to move kids or teachers really from one building to another unless we do a whole team. The split team obviously didn't work based on our conversation. So because of that, our real options are we do this 0.6, which doesn't work for scheduling reasons. It puts our class sizes too high, or we keep the 1.0s for all 4 positions. And if we do that, we have a few. There's like 2 or 3 classes total that are really low. The rest of them are pretty much what we look at now. They're somewhere between 12 and 22. So that's really a function of the way the middle school team model scheduling works and the fact that we have 2 buildings instead of 1. If we had 1 building, this would be a heck of a lot easier to deal with. So I don't think we have a great option one way or the other. I mean, I would agree with you. I think we need to keep the team. Next year, I'd like to look at all of this, early in the budget season again and see what it looks like at that point with the kids moving in and everything else. But I think for right now, in isolation, just to cut here and not look at curriculum and all these other areas of the budget at the same time, it's nearly impossible to really do that in a reasonable way.
Is there a second?
Could I ask, what question are we calling?
Just to move.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
I'm just calling the question. No, there's no motion, so I guess I can't call the question. So I'm just going to move that we maintain existing staffing levels at Williams Middle School.
Second.
What is your motion?
To maintain existing staffing levels at Williams Middle School.
There's been a
Is there in the current year or in our proposed?
As in the FY17 budget?
In the FY17 budget.
Which is 4 full-time teachers remain at Williams.
Yeah, so if I could add a little clarity to this, please.
Please.
Current budget that you approved has 0.5 and 0.5. So if you want a motion to maintain the team, I think your motion needs to be clear. It is to keep the team at 1.0 at Williams Middle School, not as it is currently in your budget.
So
Because
moved.
that motion wouldn't change anything. So.
All right, so I move to maintain the team at Williams for 1 FTE positions in 7th and 8th grade.
I'm seconding. And John, this is basically the motion that you made at Finance Sub that
That-
I couldn't
that did
second
not
because
get
I
any
wasn't able to
support, yes.
participate, but I would have.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
The only thing I'll add is my kids are going to Glenbrook eventually, so this isn't about me personally, which is why I don't have a statement to read.
All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstain?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
On behalf of Williams Middle School, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Since special education budget was part of that, could you take over that portion, please?
There are a number of people from Wolf Swamp here, and we're gonna be up all night tomorrow night at the town meeting. So is there any way we could move that ahead in the agenda?
I would entertain that.
Move what ahead on the agenda?
Principal discussion.
Oh. So there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Hold that thought, Sue. Marie, would you like to take over the Wolf Swamp and Williams Middle School discussion?
You have in your packet timelines for the Wolf Swamp Road School Principal Search and the Williams Middle School Principal Search. We talked about posting it for 3 weeks so that we advertised on Monster, Boston Globe, School Spring, MESPA, and we did an internal posting. If all goes well, then we would interview on May 26th. To date, we have 16 applications, which is very good for this early in the advertising cycle. Interviews would be May 26th. Site visits would be June 2nd, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, because you need 3 days for 3 candidates. And then the candidates will come to us on June 7th, June 8th, and June 9th. Again, you need 3 days if you have 3 candidates. After reviewing the feedback from the staff, the administrative team, the parents, and Marty would make a decision by June 13th. And the projected start date would be July 1st or negotiated to August 1st. Most candidates would need to give sufficient notice, so I think most would have to begin August 1st. The committee makeup is an elementary principal, a special ed supervisor, 2 parents, preferably 1 representing special education, 2 teachers, a support person, preschool person, school committee representative, and a central office administrator. Do you have feedback on that schedule?
So we have 16 applicants. Who's actually narrowing it down that number to the individuals we're actually interviewing? How's that happening?
It depends how many applicants there are. The committee in the past has been invited to come in and look at that. If it's a very large pool, like 40 or 50 applications, then the administrative team, usually the people that are running the search, take a look at that and try and narrow it down. There are certain givens that we look at. For example, if someone moves around a lot, they only have 2 years.
Okay.
We have some people often that apply that have no experience in education, so they're taken out. They would be very obvious. And then those that have any, that fit the criteria of what we're looking for would have their resumes open to those on the hiring committee to come in and look at.
So this hiring committee basically makes the decision as far this group here that you have listed.
Probably the administrative team would vet it first, and then the committee would come in and look and agree to the recommendations of the committee, of the administrative team.
Question, is the elementary principal going to be Dr. Guile?
No.
Why not?
You never have the person leaving on there. It's awkward.
So who is it going to be? Do you know yet?
I don't know yet.
I don't think we have, they were working out the schedule, or the proposed schedule with their, schedules at their school, so I haven't heard yet.
It'll be Maria Donna.
So, I didn't know it wasn't customary, but it seems that, I have a feeling that the school would appreciate Dr. Guile being the elementary principal. So, if he's willing, could we ask him to serve?
It's very awkward to have the candidate going out on the committee.
Neil's not a very awkward, I think, I don't want to put too much faith in him, but I think he could handle that with charisma.
We
And
certainly can ask him.
You want to give him the right to refuse?
Sure.
I mean, if he doesn't want to do it.
Right, of
we're not
course, I
gonna force him.
totally understand, but I guess I would like to ask him if he'd be willing, because I think that would be comforting for the Wolf Swamp community.
He's in the hall, should we put him on the spot?
Is he still?
No, he waved goodbye quite a while.
Oh, he did?
Who's the school committee rep going to be? Has that been decided?
To decide that tonight.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
All right, so
Liz?
You done? I just, in response to Mrs. Gephardt's email, I just looked up other school districts to see what their timelines were, just to see if we were rushing it, because I just want some background. Let's see. Newton was March 10th to the 29th. Concord was February 3rd to the 29th, February. Cranville, May 6th to May 27th. Hopkins, May 3rd to May 13th. Hopkinton, oh, sorry, that's what I said. So I just wanted to let everyone know that that is a customary timeline for hiring.
Was that the posting date or the?
Sounds like posting date.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the issue that I heard from the audience was, or from Laura, was the full timeline. So beginning on May 2nd and ending June 13th. You know, I think the posting of May 2nd to 22nd, you know, that is probably consistent with the other ones, but I don't know that we can say that the full timeline from start to hire is consistent.
I'll look that up.
Michael?
when we do the interviews, it's not going to be a culled list. It'll be the full list of applicants, correct? No, it'll be who's culling the list?
That's what I was asking before.
Okay.
Again, if there's a pool of 40 candidates, then the administrative team culls the list and puts it down to 10 to 15, and then the committee comes in and looks, and they usually, if I'm running the process, I have them check off who they want to interview, or initial, it's a yes or a no, so that you know who the committee wants to say. If it's a small pool, then they look at all the resumes. It depends how many are in the pool.
Okay. And, okay, so let's say, well, we don't even have to, is Marty going to be involved in that part of this? Like the culling?
He had not spoken about doing that. I can certainly ask.
I think that he should be. Not that I don't trust the judgment of the admin team, because I absolutely do. But obviously I want his input included in there as well.
Marie, can you just explain where and when Marty's involvement in this process, so that everyone is clear as to what role he's having in all of this and what you've discussed with him so far?
What we discussed was that the committee would bring forward 3 candidates, and at that point, Marty takes it with the administrative team. When the 3 candidates come forward, they meet the staff, they meet the parents, they meet the administrative team, and they meet with the central office. And at that point, Marty would join the central office in reviewing what the parents, staff, and community members have said, as well as reflecting on the interviews that they have. And at that point, Marty would be making a decision on who he recommends for the principalship.
So Marty would be involved on the candidate visits to Long Meadow Public Schools on the 7th, 8th, and 9th, and then he would be the one making the decision by June 13th?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that portion of it. Russ?
So I tend to agree with Liz that I think the posting period is fine. It's really everything after that that is very condensed. So if the posting closes May 22nd and we're supposed to interview starting May 26th, that's extremely short period of time to, anybody on the bubble that we want to call references, that type of thing. So if the rest of this process was delayed somewhat, and I really think Marty should be involved in the culling, because that's one of the most important parts of the process, is really figuring out. I mean, for one thing, he might know somebody in the pool. There could be people that he's heard of that he doesn't want in the pool. I mean, it's a kind of a close-knit network. So I think it makes sense to both delay the rest of the search process. I actually think the hiring should happen after July 1, because technically he's the one that's going to work with the person. And I don't think it's going to make a difference because even as your timeline says, he's either going to start July 1, or he or she, or August 1. We need somebody by August 1, or we need to do an interim. And I really would strongly suggest the interim route if we don't get somebody that we really like a lot, because this position is really important. And hopefully the person does stay for the next 8-10 years. So I'd rather not condense the process and make sure that we get the right person.
So what dates are you suggesting?
Well, I think the interviews need to be, I would say maybe 10 days out from the posting closing. Well, I put the interviews into June.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
John?
I'd like to speak against this. I think we should keep the calendar as is. One of the things we're doing right now is giving Marty O'Shea a major voice in this. So what happens to all these people who are on the committee? An elementary principal, teacher, support person, preschool, their say is thrown out the window. If Marty doesn't want someone, from what I'm hearing here, my take on this conversation is, Marty gets what he wants. I don't think that's fair. If you're going to have a committee, and someone expressed some concern about, have we already picked a candidate? If we say we're going to let Marty pick the candidate, then you got a top-heavy decision-making.
Right now, that's going to happen anyway.
But aren't we supposed to go with the committee? That's what we were criticized for in the superintendent search, that we didn't go with the committee. People are saying it was all set up ahead of time. It wasn't, but that's what people said. If we just now ignore the committee.
But the committee's not making all the decisions. They're not doing the culling in the first place. So.
Well, there's going to be some.
That's, unless, that changes, but.
It's again how big the pool is. They're invited in to look at the resumes prior. If you have a pool of 40, it takes hours to go through them, and you have non-viable candidates. Why would the administrative team not pull them out?
Yeah, I'm not saying that shouldn't happen. I'm saying that Marty should be part of that, of the process.
Is that a good use of his time?
And as I've said, I'll ask him.
Sure. But I think something that we need to remember is the principal and the principal hiring is solely the responsibility of the superintendent.
Here's the problem, because I know I called MASC and I asked them about this, because I said, I understand it's not our role to hire the principal. The problem that I have is that the person doing the hiring isn't going to be here to wreak any of the ramifications of hiring the wrong person if it happens.
I'm not hiring, Marty is.
Right.
But you're not, at the beginning of the process, he's not involved. And so if he's not looking at 40 resumes and looking through them and saying, no, yes, along with the committee, there could have been a yes in that initial 40.
But I think from what I've heard is that Michael and Russ both have asked Marie to request that Marty be part of the vetting
Right.
process.
Right. Or,
Right.
Yeah,
So that's-
and maybe the other request, well, I got a couple things. Maybe the other request is that Marie just remove herself from the process and leave it to the admin team, which solves that issue because I'm hoping most of them will be here next year.
Right.
Tom's looking a little unsure right now, but here's one thing that I do want to bring up. I am fine with kind of delaying the process, or at least the dates and the timeline a little bit. One of the things that we do need to be cognizant of is right now we've got candidate visits to Wolf Swamp essentially scheduled for June 7th, 8th, and 9th. If we push the timeline out a little bit, we do run up against the last day of school on the 21st. So we do need to make sure that parents are here, that they're able to come and meet with the candidate, which means that we have to be a little bit more, I don't want to say aggressive, but we do need to be a little bit more condensed than not. I think we can afford to be a little bit more lengthy in some areas, but certainly want to try to wrap this up before the last day of school, I would assume, right?
Well, the challenge, I think, might be that if we have great candidates, they're going to be great candidates.
Snatched up.
And people are going to be looking for them. Other districts are
Right.
looking for them. And if
Right.
they're great candidates, they interview in different places, and they get a job offer, and we're hanging out there, I'm worried that they'll take something else. That has happened to us in the past, when we've
Yeah.
come up to the end. So I don't want to rush the process either. Trust me, we're going to live with this person
Right.
hopefully for a long time.
I mean, that's a valid consideration you bring up. I mean, but
But the other thing too, not only with Sue's comment, and you bring up the last days of school, in the last 3 weeks of school, you have things like field day and, graduations and field trips and all of that, which, I'm certain that this committee and admin team would be looking at what Wolf Swamp's schedule is for those events.
I think they
but-
can visit us on most any day. It's us visiting their school. If they're in the middle of a field day or something, we might want to see other things. And
And a lot of schools actually get out before us.
okay, this is just going bad.
So we want to do it in June, earlier June than later.
Can I make a suggestion? Could we instead send Marty those 40, let's say, resumes beforehand and at the same time as the committee's looking at them, and they can go back and forth, and he'll say, I don't want these 40 or whatever. And so.
Or if there's, so that he can give his feedback.
Why can't you look at them the same time as the committee? And they can.
He can.
But you're giving
Be
him
back and
veto
forth.
power, and it goes completely against the whole idea of having this
But-
diverse committee.
No, it doesn't, because.
Well, if you're going to give him veto power, say, I don't want that one.
John, Marie was going to have veto power. She was going to be able, if there were 40 applicants, the administrative team, Marie, which in my mind, the
For
administrative
the
team
initial
is
call,
Marie's.
but that could be whoever, if you don't want it to be Marie. It could be whoever. There
But why
has to be a
wouldn't-
call.
Why wouldn't you want Marty involved at the beginning? If it's Marty, Sue, and Tom, what's the problem with that?
You're loading it with power to Marty. Too much
He's going to
power.
be the superintendent.
I want to know what happens to the committee when you give a superintendent so much power.
So you would like the committee to do the culling also?
That should be their job.
Ideally.
If you're going to maintain this, unless it's a farce. You're presenting a farce to the people? And in fact, that only one person is actually going to do the choosing. Otherwise, no, that's my feeling. You're eliminating the role of the committee. Give it something to do.
Michelle?
I support the committee having, a lot of involvement in this. I actually had a couple questions. Are the parents, I assume they're going to be from Wolf Swamp. Are the teachers going to be from Wolf Swamp? The support person from Wolf Swamp? So the preschool, school committee representative would be obviously, okay.
I mean, that's how we did the superintendent search. We allowed the committee to cull also. That is what we did. So I guess we could do it that same way. It's basically Wolf Swamp community, especially if we put Neil Guile as the principal rep. It'd be Wolf Swamp parents, the special ed supervisor from that building, 2 of the teachers from that building, support person, preschool person.
And then
So
maybe if the committee, along with the administrative team that's there, prefers to move forward with an interim, they would have that opportunity then to say, I think we'd prefer to have a longer search process, and that gives the Wolf Swamp community a lot of say in whether or not they want to speed up the timeline, or if they feel like they don't have what they're looking for and they want to wait a little longer.
it would probably delay the whole timeline by about a week at every level, I would think. Because you got to get a group of people together to cull. But
Can I
So if
remind the
you- The
committee,
decision would be
the
end of
reason
June.
this is starting when it is because we didn't get Dr. Giles' resignation until we did. That's why it's so late.
Yeah, we're
What
late in
Marie
the
said
process.
earlier
I
is
mean, we're
is
gonna
true.
have the problem you described, really, no matter what, unfortunately.
And those figures from other towns show that we're late getting into this.
Absolutely.
So if you push,
So now you want to make it later? No, all right.
you push interviews back to June 1st, that pushes back candidates' visits to the 7th, 8th, and 9th. It pushes candidates' visits to LPS, to Wolf Swamp, to the 14th, 15th, and 16th. And then it pushes the decision back into which doesn't matter because it pushes it into the following week where school will be out. But The question would be, does Wolf Swamp have any field trips or field days the 14th, 15th, or 16th? So that's your question. That's the last full week of school, and will the staff be available? And will parents be available? I'm more concerned about the staff, making sure the staff has input. But if you push that back, that's your timeline. So is that what people are looking for?
I mean, I think we have to be able to strike a balance between the concerns that we heard raised by Wolf Swamp parents and, you know, sort of the realities of principal hiring season. So I think that that's definitely a step in the right direction. I don't think it's perfect, but if we can, you know, make sure that Marty is kind of driving, you know, the car on this, and we can kind of slow things down so that, you know, people feel more comfortable. I mean,
Your
is
other
that
issue of the candidates being pulled from their schools, if they're sitting
Right.
principals, you may have trouble getting them to come because that's their last week of school. And for some of them, it's the real last week of school. So you push it back that far, you jeopardize having candidates saying, sorry, we can't come.
right?
And I think to Sue's point from before of, you know, so the posting closes May 22nd, and now you're looking to interview 4 weeks later. That's a long time for people to sit, you know, where they may be interviewing elsewhere, and
4 weeks later, maybe 10 days.
May 22nd, you have the last week of May, you have the first 2 full weeks of June, so that's 3 weeks.
They
No, we were
interview
gonna
the first
interview
week
the
of
first week.
They wanted to interview.
Just
Oh,
instead of
okay.
interviewing 4 different days, it'd be like 8 days.
Okay.
Which I think probably gives the candidates a little better planning time during a hectic
Right.
time of year as well. They may have trouble just, you know, they might have, looking at the posting, closing, and the interviews, they might have 2 days' notice about an interview, and it might be hard. So this gives them a little more fluff time, too.
I should mention one thing, actually, the culling of the superintendent search, that was actually Ray and Associates that culled
Yes.
down to 9.
You want to get them back?
So,
Okay, let's move on.
yeah.
So we'll be doing this into August.
So where, this was just opened for discussion, and Marie was giving an update, is there, and what I have from this is that Michelle's requested to ask Dr. Guile to be the principal, and Marie will ask him, and that Michael and Russ have asked that Marty be part of the vetting process, which Marie said she will be happy to reach out to him. Marie has also given new dates. I don't know if there's anything else that people wish to discuss. I know a school committee representative has to be chosen.
I just want to ask, the committee is comfortable with the candidates coming to Long Meadow Public School, to Wolf Swamp on the 14th, 15th, and 16th, knowing that some principals, it's their last week in the building. So if you have a sitting principal, they may not be able to come. There's a very real chance that if you have a good sitting principal, they're not going to be able to do a site visit. So are you comfortable with that? And you know that.
I'm not comfortable with that. I'd rather give the, keep the tie line, but have Marty involved more.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with Liz.
I thought
Is that-
John
is that
was
amicable?
saying we'd have
No,
the
okay.
committee do the culling, though. The Marty, because Marty, if we do it that way, Marty doesn't get involved until later. Which I'm,
But Marty can cull as well as the committee. If you have people come and read the resumes and they initial a yes or a no, and Marty can do the same, then Marty can take a look at what the committee said. Somebody has to determine which ones you're seeing and which ones you're not. But you have feedback from the committee on who the favorite candidates are.
yeah, I'm just pointing out that I think John is saying the person that decides would be the committee. This group would decide who to cull and
So
who
they
to
sit in
see.
a meeting and read the resumes.
Is that what you're saying? I mean,
So you'd add another meeting.
If you're going to have a meaningful committee, yes.
So what is the
So
what is
you're
the-
adding another meeting.
what does the revised timeline look like? Just because I want to just make sure I have the dates written down correctly.
Well, I have to, I don't, before you revise the timeline, not that.
Proposed revised.
Well,
It's a draft, but we don't know that people are.
Right. I mean, it is very, everybody, a lot of people do get out that week before us.
But I don't
So
know that
how
we have to
does that-
decide all this right now anyway. All we really have to decide is who's doing what.
Should
And
we
then they're
decide-
going to decide what the dates are.
Oh, I think we
I
need
mean,
to
it's-
decide
No,
this
I-
now.
yeah.
People are wanting to know what's happening, there's a lot of discussion. I'm not comfortable moving forward without your stamp of approval on this.
I'll make a motion, we keep the current timeline.
We have a
Second.
motion and a second. Further discussion?
Is it possible to put in between the posting closes and the interviews, the vetting meeting?
So just add that.
You need to add a date for vetting the resume, so
Yeah.
you,
Can you vet on a rolling basis?
How do you do that?
You take the ones that are
You have to
in.
do something like May 23rd, because everyone will be reading the resume, so if it closes, people know right now you form the committee, and they know on May 23rd, you're meeting to do the resumes. But then that makes it very tight for 3 days for getting candidates in, that's not enough time.
Yeah,
Diane?
because you've got Friday is the...
Diane?
All the applicants are applying through School Spring, so as soon as the closing date happens, we can put people into School Spring as guests to view resumes. And then nobody has to like get together to read resumes.
They just have to
can
do it
all-
by a certain date.
They
Right.
can all get in, read the resumes, get together and discuss who have a matrix as to how they're rating what they've already read at home.
So that they come prepared
But you
to the
do
meeting.
have to, the only thing that you do have to do is guide your committee that it's confidential. They can't let out anything that they're reading, but you can do it.
So what if we just keep this timeline, but add to the committee makeup Marty O'Shea? So that he'll be part of that, the matrix, do the interviews, and then he'll select at the very end.
You want him at the interviews? For selecting the candidates?
I mean, I think.
I thought he was planning on doing that.
No,
The
He wasn't
final
going to be at the
three.
26th, he was going to be...
he interviews, the way it's been set up is the superintendent interviews the 3 finalists that the committee brings forward.
I'm good asking him to do that. I just want to make sure that we're considerate of the fact that he actually has another full-time job.
But now I'm confused though, because the interviews are May 26th. That's not Marty doing those, that's the committee.
That interviews, those are for the, like, initial,
So when does Marty interview?
and that's the...
He interviews along the time when you see the site visits and they come here. They
Mhm.
meet with the
Candidate to
administrative
LTS.
team, they meet with Marty, they meet with the central office, they meet with the parents, they meet with staff. So on that day, he meets them.
So the June 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Correct.
But there should be a formal interview with Marty.
Yes.
It's on those days.
It's on the 7th, 8th, and 9th?
And in addition, he
Right.
has the option of doing follow-ups with them if he's not clear on that day.
But that also allows the candidates to meet with the admin team, with the parents, so it's a full day that the candidate is in Long Meadow Public Schools. Part of that is an interview with Marty. The rest is with admin, teachers, and staff, and parents.
Okay, so if we keep the timeline the same, Marty's involved in the culling with this committee through a matrix. And then Marty's also going to interview in June when they come here.
The 4 or so.
Yeah, 3 or 4, whatever it is, the finalists that the committee puts forward. And then at some point, there would be a presentation to the school committee about who the recommendation or selection
The
is.
3 finalists come forward. No, Marty will
The final
choose that, and the finalist
person.
comes for an interview here. It's a courtesy interview.
Yep.
But I'm confused because we said we want the committee to meet with Marty to go through the resumes.
Not to meet, I think we just do an online.
But Diane said you can go on
matrix.
School Spring and do that, but you still need to be in the room to discuss who are your candidates. You can pre-read, but you have to come together. So we pull the committee together on May 23rd to decide who the candidates are going to interview.
Why do
That-
they have to get together, though?
I thought that's what you wanted.
Well, they couldn't discuss anything, they had to be together.
It'll have to be like an executive session?
Yeah, like an executive session.
Well, I was thinking we just do well, it's not open meeting because it's
This
not.
is not a school committee.
School
committee,
committee.
so we don't follow up.
I mean, this is where the matrix could work, because you just do the matrix and.
Employ the process.
So everyone's comfortable then with people reading the resumes, filling out a matrix, then Marty can decide who he wants to interview.
No.
No.
I guess my question is then, to follow up on this, does that mean that the matrix, however it's constructed, would rank the candidates from this committee? You know, they would have chosen number 1, 2, 3, 4, however, and then somehow mathematically, it would determine the top
10.
candidates, top 10 candidates, and then they would interview them? Is that what's
Yeah,
being?
you'd have to-
It would have to be a
you'd have
different
to-
strategy, like, you know how we did do 1 or 2?
Right.
2 or 3. I think it
Right.
would have to be along those lines. I'm guessing we're going to have 40 candidates. I mean,
And you
we
want
have
people in the
17
room.
right now.
If you're inexperienced and haven't done resume searches before, there's a danger to doing that, to filling out a matrix that somebody who doesn't realize that someone who flips jobs every 2 to 3 years is a bad candidate. So if you do the matrix and you have your priorities set up and you've already reviewed them, come in the room and discuss it. Then you're certain you're getting the best candidates because you can listen to one another and see why you chose a candidate or why you didn't. You may change your mind.
Yeah, I would say it's important to meet then, so.
So the thing closes on the 22nd. The, through School Spring, people, the committee makeup, as well as Marty, I'm just throwing out, is this what we've summarized? The committee makeup and Marty can go through, say, 40 applications on School Spring, get their ideas together, meet on the 23rd or the 24th, whenever they can meet, narrow it down to 10, and then the committee, minus Marty, meets on the 26th to interview those 8 to 10 candidates? Does that sound like what we've, is that? And then those 8 to 10 are narrowed down to 3 to 4 for the June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd site visits, and then June 7th, 8th, and 9th interviews and visits to LPS where they are interviewed by Marty. Is that how that works?
They're interviewed, during the site visits, they see everyone. They come for the full day. They're here until about 5 o'clock at night. They start at 8. They visit the school, they visit classrooms, they meet with Neil. Then after school, they have a staff meeting and they meet with the staff. Then after that, they meet with parents. Then at some point, they're meeting probably during the day with central offices called over. During the day, they can meet with Marty. So it's a full schedule.
Okay.
Do we know if he can make that time frame?
I know, I was just gonna ask, did he?
I think we're speculating for him.
Yeah.
I mean, who's trying to read 40 applications in one day? People
They're ongoing. Once we let them into School Spring right away, they're reading them the whole time. Very few people wait till the last day to apply. So
Could
someone
the
could get in
committee go in now and review
Yeah.
the 16 that are?
As soon as we decide who is on the committee, I can submit them.
they can be reading them all along.
What?
It's a pretty different process than what we've done in the past. To have
For
someone-
principals?
Yeah, to have somebody looking through 40 or potentially 50.
The more
Resumes,
we
so I
get people
think-
to read, the more chance you have them leaking names too, and we don't want to do that. So if I let people in now, it's too long a distance between the time from now to the close and the decision. So we've got to wait till the posting closes. I really don't want to open, I don't mean to open Pandora's box, but I would not want to let a committee of people into School Spring seeing all the applicants today. It just wouldn't be smart, and you might limit who is going to apply, thinking your name might get leaked.
So can I just talk about how we've done it in the past? Is that okay? Please.
So for these types of positions, typically central office admin looks at all the resumes. We look for length of stay, experience, like school districts. We have a big kind of list of things that we look for, and then we narrow down the candidates. And we always say to whoever the final has the final hiring, here's the whole list. Anybody on there that you love, anybody on there that you think is, going to give us challenges, but really, we're in the business. We look at them all the time. We know what to look for. I think we've done a pretty good job, give or take, But I feel like you're giving yourselves a lot of work, and you're spreading out all that kind of work amongst a lot of people. And I know Diane's right. It's not in our, we don't want to be not confidential, but it's in our nature sometimes to have a conversation with somebody and things come out, and I don't want to ruin anybody's career over something like that. So I feel like it's a process that's worked pretty well so far. I don't know, Tom, do you want to speak to it, or?
Well, I agree. I also think that we have contacts in education who we can vet before they get to the process of being considered without needing to share information that isn't maybe something that should be out in the public about a candidate. So I just think that there is a process that takes place. I think you need to trust your administrators. The two other elementary principals can be involved in that process too. They know a lot of,
Marie Pratt knows everybody.
So I think
Can't Marty be part of that?
he can be.
Absolutely.
We can't commit that he can be,
Right.
What we originally
come and
said.
have a meeting.
We asked him to call the resumes.
Yeah, and so
John's not okay with that idea?
I think he was. And I would assume, like, we have Marie, the whole list, not the called list, but here, glance at the whole list, but here's our,
And Marty can
here's
have
our
access
shortened.
to School Spring, and he can go on School Spring and look and say.
How many, in the past, finalists from a cold list actually make it to the committee? The parent staff committee, was it like 3, or did you go with 10, or do you remember?
I want to say it's.
I know when we did, I was on Neil's search
Yeah.
committee, we interviewed 9 candidates.
Yeah.
Okay, and then it goes to
Yeah.
3 that
Yeah, I
Marty
mean,
would
we toil
interview.
over, like, okay, we don't want to do too many interviews, but we've
6
had
to
like 2
10.
full days of interviews at times for
Right.
people because there's so many good candidates.
6 to 10 is normal.
I mean, we have to work with these people as well, so it's in our best interest to pick people who are, going to be a good fit for students and the community, and also for us.
Yeah, I think everybody understands that. It was just, when does Marty get inserted
Yeah.
into the process
Yeah.
is really a question. I mean, it wasn't so much.
Got it. So, like, as always, I think Marty and Marie should have access to all of them, and if they like somebody particularly that they know about or have heard things that are negative, then that's a good time for them to be
And I've been
involved.
clear on this with both the Director of Pupil Services and this, it's Marty's hire. Marty
Yes.
works with the person, Marty has to pick someone he's very comfortable with. Those are the conversations I've had with Marty. So the more involved he is, the better, but he does have a full-time job, so.
Yeah. He's reached out probably, I think, to everybody about meeting with us, but he really can't meet except for 7 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon. So I know that he's got a packed schedule.
I got my 7
You got
a.m.
your 7 a.m.
set.
So,
But the
If I-
culling will just be him getting names and eliminating some
Yes,
people, is really what's
where
gonna happen.
that's not a good one, or this is a great person right here, right?
Yeah, that'll save him time in the long run.
Yeah.
so if I remember correctly, through all this discussion, there's a motion on the floor to keep the timeline as it is. That was seconded. Correct? Is there any?
I think you should.
Okay. So is there any further discussion?
One more thing I have to
Please.
say. So I think the timeline is probably a draft at best, because we haven't called for interviews, we haven't seen when people can come, we haven't gotten the committee members. So, I mean, I think we roughed it out to where we want it to be, but that doesn't always work out that way.
I'm going to disagree with my colleague on this one.
Thank you.
I think we're asking people to set aside time
Yes.
so they
Mhm.
can plan for it. I think we have to stick with it. If whatever the final schedule is going to be, we have to make sure that the parents and staff and school committee members know exactly what's expected of them and when, without changing it up in, 2 weeks.
So now, when
School visits.
are the parents being chosen?
Diane's sending out an email tomorrow that says the deadline is Friday, a reminder to apply
And that the dates that they're expected to be available would be May the 26th.
That was in the letter to the community already, so that
Okay.
they have that, but she could put that in the email reminder, you have to be available this date.
Okay.
We also bring members of the search committee to the site visits.
Right.
if
So
there's
it
a
was
parent,
also
they
stated
need
that
those
the
dates.
June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd was in that letter? Diane?
I have a draft
For them to come here.
What was the letter that's already been sent to the community?
That these are the dates that it's going on, but I think they would need to know they should be available. They do not have to be available for the site visit,
But
it's if they are.
If they are.
It would be nice if we had parent representation. But the most important is the interview date and
Okay.
holding that date. But as Tom said, they need to know if they work, they're
Right.
planning on taking off, they need to know the date.
Russ?
So I would only be okay with the timeline if Marty's able to do these things. If he's not, I'd want everything delayed. And I do think the decision on the school committee level should be after the election, because there's 2 new people that are going to be actually working with the person.
There's no decision by the school committee.
You just interview the finalists.
Well, you just said you would make a presentation to us before you actually sign a contract.
The
earlier.
finalist comes to meet you. It's a
Yeah.
courtesy, and you interview him and talk with him or her.
Yeah, but presumably that happens before a contract's already been signed and everything else.
No, because contract negotiations have to go on, and in terms of everything being public by that point, you have the 3 finalists, so, and you're bringing one forward, it's assumed that that's the candidate. And you also have to confidentially agree on salary before you go public with a comment, so you don't run into trouble down the road. So those negotiations would take place behind closed doors to make sure the person would work within the salary range that we're offering.
Well, I think the word interview is not maybe the right terminology. Introduction, I think, has really been the case, is that once the individual has been selected, the superintendent brings that individual and introduces them as the person who's been appointed to the position.
All right, so we're back to the motion of keeping the timeline as it is and being seconded. Michelle?
There are parents in the audience that have been listening to us go back and forth about all this. I know it's not customary, but can we get some sort of a read on whether or not they feel more comfortable after listening to all? You have no idea either?
I mean, I'll say, I appreciate what I've heard. I mean, I think there has been some.
Can you come
good
to the microphone so parents at home can hear you? Thank you.
I think there has been some good elucidation of some points. Like, obviously, what Diane said about confidentiality, that's critical. I think you're right about the committee, being involved as much as possible. I appreciate more clarity about when Marty will be involved, although this evening we really have no clarity about that because we haven't spoken with him. So that's one major reservation. I'd also like to understand better how a committee, as described, would be in a position to halt the process and then request an interim if it felt that that was appropriate.
If the committee feels that they don't have viable candidates, that's what they'll send forward.
So that would need to happen,
Sometime within the timeline.
but no, it would have to be earlier than that. It would have to
the
be.
interview day.
The last week of May.
Believe it or not, most committees are pretty unanimous on what candidates they bring forward, especially if a top-notch principal stands out. So they will know that day whether they have a viable candidate or not. You're really fortunate when you have 2 or 3 of them, but if there's not a viable candidate, then the committee can say there's no viable candidate, because it will be consensus of the committee.
I would be really interested in solidifying that as an option, because I do feel that this timeline is too narrow. And I understand what the rationales, but personally I want this done right, and I'm not convinced that in the sort of weighing both ends of the spectrum, that we're going to get where we need to be under these kinds of constraints. I mean, this is crazy. It's like, really, I mean, it's... It's
we may
rapid
not.
fire.
Marty and I have already talked about the possibility of an interim. But again, when we hired Neil, it was the same timeline. It was late in the year. He was the last interview of the day. We thought we had a busted search. And then the last candidate came in, and everyone in the room was like, wow, thank you, God, we have a fantastic candidate for principal here.
I hear what you're saying, but we're in a totally different situation now, with yourself departing and being involved in this vetting process.
Well, it's Marty's
And I
hire.
appreciate the hand extended towards Marty and all that. I want to guarantee that. So anyway, so that's how I'm feeling. I'm feeling like I have not much more clarity than when this started, although good attempts have been made. I don't know.
But that's valuable feedback, and obviously we appreciate
I don't want to be the
that.
only one. I don't know if anybody else has anything else to say. My name's Kristen Thomas, by the way, 489 Wolf Swamp.
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate what Kristen said. I do appreciate all the attempts, and I do really strongly agree that the committee should actually do something. I've been told many times it's the superintendent's decision, so there's an advisory committee, which is great, but the superintendent can ultimately say, it's my decision, by law, I can do whatever I want. So as much power as we give the committee, it still doesn't have to be taken into account, which is why I think we all feel so strongly that hopefully Superintendent O'Shea will have the time. But if he doesn't and he can't, I don't think we should rush it just because he doesn't have the time. Rightfully so, he doesn't owe us anything at this point. It'd be nice, but we can't demand it of him. So if he can't do it, I really think it should be pushed off to when he starts, and he does have the time. And I understand that complicates timelines and all other sorts of things, but the interim is an option. So I think that we should really utilize that. Also, I definitely appreciate, if Dr. Guile is asked to serve as the principal, I understand it's unconventional. I know Wolf Swamp parents would feel a lot better about the process, whatever the timeline, if he is on there. If he's not, again, I think we need to revisit it. If he says, you know what, I just really can't do it, which I think he has the best interests of the school at heart. It would be great if he could, but if he can't, again, I think that needs to factor into the equation of the timeline. And just, again, I think, even if there's this committee and nobody has access to them until we close the 22nd, that's a Sunday. Monday is the 23rd already. We're talking about interviews 3 days later. I think that's a huge amount of pressure to put on people, even if it's called down by whomever, to say you need to read these all today and rank them today so we can try to contact people. I just still think it is way too compressed. And, I understand that some school districts are getting out the week before us, but I think we're focusing too narrow a geographic area. There's school districts that are going to be out in May. We can't hurry up and try to get those too. I mean, I think we're kind of putting on blinders and saying we're only going to look at people in Western Massachusetts who are on our same timeline. I mean, school districts get out at all sorts of timelines. If we really want to advertise this and get the best person who may be interested in coming here, I think we really can't be constrained by other people's school districts' timelines. So that's just my thoughts. Again, I appreciate the time devoted to this issue. I know it wasn't supposed to take up this much time, but this is something we all feel very strongly about. It's been said many times tonight, but we're at a huge loss with Dr. Guile leaving, and we shouldn't rush and make a mistake. We should stop, think, and do it right. Thanks.
I just want to add very briefly, if I can, and I'm a school administrator and teacher in education for 20 years, so I've been on both sides of this, and I just really want to acknowledge that there's obvious dissent among this committee. It can be painful at times to watch these committee meetings, and to put it, I'm just going to be frank, the sentiment in town, the confidence piece is not there. So I just want to bring out that sort of community feel that if you're going to bring people onto this committee and tell them they have a voice, and then you're just going to steamroll ahead because a few people, whether that's Marty O'Shea or a current administrator in Longmeadow now, that's problematic because parents are feeling frustrated. There's been just issue after issue that's been heated, emotional topics played out. And so I agree that this is an extremely important decision and we cannot get it wrong. And I just also want to mention the teachers at Wolf Swamp. I mean, those teachers are really, they really got behind Dr. Guile, and there have been some great instructional things happening there. And so when I hear two teachers and I hear two parents, it does feel a little bit like it's a show, and it's just, we bring these committees together, and how how thoughtful are we being about that, and how can we really involve the Wolf Swamp teachers and make sure that they have a valid voice in the process? Those are my concerns. Thank you.
I'm puzzled by that. In my 6 years, we've never overrode a committee. So I'm puzzled why people would feel a committee would be disempowered.
I think it's the interim part, that, if people are excited about a candidate and the decision-making power is centralized here, that you don't want to lose that person, you don't want to extend the interim position, are they going to turn it down? And so you shore up and you lock somebody in that the Wolf Swamp community might be with for years and years, So I just think the timing of it all and the confidence level and the disagreements that we've seen play out in public have me cautious personally.
So I'm going to state the obvious, but I don't know how we can vote on a timeline without knowing if Marty is available for the timeline.
Well, the
So-
timeline we just voted on, he needs to look at resumes because we took out the meeting. So all we're asking him to do is to look at resumes in that he needs, the first, second, and third of the big questions. Can he, I'm sorry, the 7th, 8th, and 9th.
But that's what we
is
don't
available
know.
there.
We don't know
So-
if he can be here. I mean, that's the, if we knew for sure he could be there on those dates and he was going to be involved through the whole process, I'd be more comfortable voting, although I still think the end of the process should be later. But there's no way I would vote on it now without knowing if Marty can even do it. I mean, it's,
So what are we doing?
Well, we still have a motion to keep the timeline as it is.
was that seconded?
Yes, it was.
So we should vote.
All right, call for vote. All those in favor of keeping the timeline as is?
Can we, is it able to say that it's as long as Marty's involvement is?
Well, that wasn't the original motion. The motion was keeping the timeline as it was, and that was seconded.
So can somebody amend the motion, maybe?
Can
I made it, but I understand Marty's going to have a role in here somewhere.
I know.
I think we're looking for some codification.
I guess, so I was looking for him to be a part of it from the beginning.
Well, I think he should have some role, but I think I like the idea of we have a committee and it should be given some say.
So-
My main concern is I don't want to go for an interim, and I think you're endangering the operation of the school if you put someone in there and say, okay, as of August 15th, you're the principal. Good luck.
So, John.
I mean, they might even have to be hiring people with summer resignations. I mean,
So-
that's why I like the current timeline.
So the way that it was, huh?
I'm listening to John, but putting an interim in the middle of August, that's tough.
It is extremely tough.
So the way it was originally going to happen was Marie, Sue, and Tom were going to go through 40 or so resumes and whittle them down to 10, say, for a round number?
6 to 10.
6 to 10 resumes.
This is a principal search,
Right.
so the pool probably won't be 40. We're up to 16 right now, but we've been seeing, about 20 resumes, 20 to 30?
So, John, so originally it was going to be Marie, Sue, and Tom were going to vet the resumes, and they were going to give them to the committee, and the committee was going to meet on May 26th to do interviews. Were you okay with that?
Yeah, I can live with
So why
that.
can't we replace Marie with Marty in that equation?
If Marty will do it, sure. Okay.
So that's all I'm,
Right. So the amendment would be yes to the timeline as presented, as long as Marty is available to meet this timeline. Is that what you're?
yeah.
I'll second that amendment.
Tom, go ahead.
Can I ask, what if he's not? Are we waiting 2 weeks to come back to you to then discuss the next steps?
I would push it to the next earliest date that he could do it.
So you don't think he would be available at one point over the next couple weeks to look at some resumes?
I don't mean that part. I think I'm thinking more on the June 7th,
Oh.
8th, and 9th dates when the interviews are for the candidates, the finalists. So I'm sure he can make time to go through and look at them.
Resumes at night.
At night, yes. But depending upon the time on those 3 dates that he would be meeting with candidates. Might be difficult if it's during the day. So unless we structure them where they're at night, where he's interviewing them at 5 or 6 or.
But
sometime
how
in the
does he
evening.
make a selection if he doesn't interview?
I'm not disagreeing.
I mean, that's
I absolutely think he needs to and plans on interviewing them. I actually spoke to him and he did say yes, he's absolutely planning on interviewing the candidates who are brought forward from the search committee. So I don't know if.
That's 3 candidates, not 10 candidates.
Well, no, we weren't, I don't think we were asking him to be involved on the 26th. Is that correct?
Yep.
I think we were
Yeah,
just
no, that
yeah.
normally isn't the role.
Just that week in June, some week in
Just-
You
June.
mentioned the 7th, 8th, and 9th to him already. You've seen this timeline.
So,
But if he can't do those, then I would say the next available date in June that he can interview them.
So it might be best if we consider setting up those interviews with him in the evening, maybe after the parent meet and greet, so it's 6 or 6:30.
We just flip the schedule.
Yeah, so it's not something that would conflict with his time and his current role. I just don't want to
So
see
could
the process
amendment
getting
say
pushed out too far.
that as proposed, unless we need to change dates to accommodate Marty's schedule, and then leave that to us to work out those dates? It would have to be after the 7th, 8th, and 9th, and just push it back, but we would work around Marty's schedule.
yeah, I mean, you've already talked with him. He's seen the schedule, so hopefully he's figuring out how he can work it in. I mean, you said he was going to be involved in that process, so he's always been going to be involved in those final interviews. So all we've done tonight, after however long this has taken, is add him to the beginning of the process with the interviews, which is something he can hopefully do at night.
Of vetting the
And just to kind of put everybody at ease, I fully intended or expected he was going to be involved in the culling process anyways.
Right.
So I don't know that I ever had an expectation that he wasn't going to see all the applicants and weigh
Couldn't have said
in.
that 45 minutes ago.
Tom, you need to start speaking up more before.
It's easy to do sometimes. But
Because
I
that was
think,
never talked about.
I think the expectation was he was always going to be set up as somebody who, along with myself and Sue and Marie, who would be looking at them. Again, he has contacts in education and knows candidates or potentially might know some of the candidates and would be weighing in. So, I mean, I don't know that his involvement, in my opinion, or in my mind, was ever in question from the very beginning.
So, given all of that, should we proceed as sort of recommended, but include Marty and maybe not include Marie? Because that seems to be, I mean, besides I understand that the timeline consolidation is not optimal. You know, obviously there's a lot of considerations, but I think that one of the bigger kind of concerns in addition to that is that if a decision gets made, which obviously we know Marty's going to have been involved, but we want to kind of just make it, demonstrate to the community that if a decision gets made, the person who's going to be here next year sitting next to us is stuck with that person, not the person who's moving back to.
Right, but we've already said that with him
Right, but I think we
interviewing
want to
and
just kind
hiring.
of reiterate that it's going to be the existing admin team minus Marie, and I'm sure you don't mind giving that
I don't
up,
mind
right?
in the
So,
Plus Marty.
Marty has
I mean, that's
questions he can
the amended motion basically will do that.
right, so I just want to kind of spell that out since we've been talking for an hour and I'm a little foggy on the details, but I don't think we're going to be able to get to something that's perfect. I think that what we need to be able to do is kind of look at the Wolf Swamp community and say that we spent a lot of time talking about how the search is going to be conducted, and we're committed to making sure that the people who are going to deal with the decision that gets made are going to be here to be responsible for that decision that gets made.
So, calling the vote on the amendment.
Can I just clarify, this committee has the power to say we don't see any viable candidates, or we would prefer to reopen the search? Does this committee have that ability as well?
Yeah, I think they've always had that,
Okay,
but if you want to
just wanted
spell
to
it out,
clarify.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, so voting on the amendment. All those in favor? All right, so now voting on the motion as amended. All of those in favor?
Good, we only have another half agenda left to go.
I know.
Well, we got to vote on who from the committee is going to be on that.
Right,
Oh.
there we go. A
Committee.
decision needs to be made of who from school committee is going to be represented.
And it would be good if you're available those dates.
Any
The
school
interview
committee
date
members
and the
leaving?
site visit dates to go to their sites.
So it would be May 26th and June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So who from school committee?
May 26th, like all day or?
May
probably.
26th, figure 8 to 5. If you have 8 to 10 candidates.
I can't.
All right, so let's just, you can't, John?
You're asking if I'm volunteering?
Well, I'm asking if you're available on those 4 dates, May 26th, June 1st, 2nd, 3rd.
I think I am.
Liz? I have work. You've got work. Kim? Michelle?
Not all of them.
Russ?
I can't do all of them either.
Perfect.
Um,
All right, I move John Fitzgerald.
You're volunteering, John Fitzgerald.
It's not mandatory you go on the site visits. It would have been nice if someone could, but you'll receive feedback from the committee anyway. Tom set up a Google Sheet and did a great job with the Director of Pupil Services, and I'm sure he'll follow a similar format.
Absolutely.
So
I
you
thought
can
Tom
read
said
what
he's-
people put in.
Once again, I didn't volunteer for this position. I was told I was on it, so.
Tom, I like how this keeps happening to you. It's all because you deferred Sue to the superintendent search.
I did. I felt Sue was working hard doing 2 jobs, so.
Okay, so,
I mean, if we did the 27th, I could be there that day. It's just not the 26th.
all right, so,
You know, on June 1st, there's a retired teacher, Mary Jane Centeno from Wolf Swamp, for a party.
well, we wouldn't want to affect the
I know,
party.
I
It's
just
just a
get
site visit, John.
That's a site
It's you
visit.
going to a candidate's district.
I just gotta find something to do with my third grade.
All right, so who is going to be the representative for this committee?
Can I add a little more clarification once
Oh,
again, if you don't
please.
mind? It doesn't have to be the school committee member. When we did the PS director, it was a makeup. There was a group of members from the search committee
Who went on the
who
site
went.
visit?
It doesn't necessarily have to be a school committee member attending those site visits.
Right, but the school committee member has to be available the 26th.
Correct.
And if they are available the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd to join the site visits.
Correct.
Okay. Do we have a volunteer?
I could do it if I could find a babysitter from 3 to 5.
But aren't you in the same position? You're not going to be here next year, so.
Right? I still live in the town.
And we can't do
No,
the
I'm not,
27th.
But you're right, I will not be on the school committee next year, so. It doesn't matter if you guys don't want me to be on the committee.
I'll do it if
it's
you,
fine with me.
if no one else wants it.
So,
Perfect.
John has volunteered. Is anyone else wishing to volunteer? All right.
Okay,
Congratulations, John.
Thanks, John.
thanks.
Good stuff.
All right. Now that we have, it is 10:30. I don't even, I
Oh my God.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
We have town meeting the next couple nights. We
Yeah.
gotta.
Don't say that.
Was there anything else from finance sub, since we've been on finance sub topics?
Special education.
Well, I was going to ask what, and perhaps it's inappropriate for me to ask, but what items left on this agenda can be postponed to the following meeting? Because quite honestly, at 10:30, there is no way we can finish this entire agenda.
I'm good moving. I don't know when you want to put the survey out to parents, but I'm totally fine waiting until the next meeting to talk about all the changes that we made.
On the homework survey.
Yeah.
Is the committee agreeable to that?
I agree.
So I move that we table the parent survey and homework guides to the next meeting.
Okay.
Can you just send it to us in between?
Yeah, I think it's in your packet too.
Oh, it is?
All right.
Yep. It got stuck, but mine's in mine. Can we move your letters of support for more funding?
Yep.
I don't do that.
I move that we move letters in support of more funding to the next meeting. Table.
Okay.
Do we need to spend an hour on the Williams Middle School assistant principal search, or are we good with the process, with the timeline?
Okay. Well, hold on. Going backwards, we've still got Sue and the special ed budget projections, Marie's goals, the warrants, the minutes, and executive session. Minutes did not make it, okay.
Sorry.
Excellent, we just move it right along.
All right, so we moved Kim's.
We probably need to
Right,
do
so right now we have, can you do a speed presentation?
3 minutes, yep.
Okay,
But wait, I was going to ask about the Williams Middle School assistant principal search. Is that something that we can move? Do we?
no, the
need to hear
dates
about it?
are even more, the posting closes tomorrow.
Well, we haven't heard any concerns about it. Is everybody okay with the dates?
I'll make a motion, we approve the Williams School
All right, is there a second?
search procedure as listed. Second?
I second, I just
Second.
have to approve it.
All right, is there any further discussion on Williams Middle School assistant principal?
The only thing I would add is that Principal Rye makes the decision anyway, and he's going to be here next year, so I don't think we have the same type of issues, so.
All right, Tom, did you need to say something?
No, but I think for the summer retreat, school committee's gonna have to decide what role they're gonna be playing. If we need to bring
Yes.
timelines for superintendent hires to you before we publish
Principals.
them, principal hires to the school committee before we publish them, so that we have your
This is a
approval.
Very unique situation.
It's only the changeover. That's why
Okay.
this other one doesn't matter.
All right.
All right.
I just,
I'm not speaking because I won't be here, but I'm pretty sure that this.
Call the vote.
You guys have fun.
just to know what you expect
All
in the
those in
future.
favor?
Okay.
All right, so all those in favor of approving Williams Middle School assistant principal search as presented? Okay.
And can I move really quickly before we get to Sue that we approve the warrants by consent agenda?
Sure. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving warrants as a consent agenda item?
Is that a good precedent?
Tonight.
How many warrants do we have?
No, it's just one, I can read it
All
right into the
please,
record.
go ahead with the
Withdrawn.
warrants.
Okay, excuse me.
Sorry, John.
I wrote it down, that's all right. I move the school committee approve the warrant batch number 3163 of the general fund fiscal year 2016, dated 13 May 2016, in the amount of $444,513.80.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
All right.
Thank you. All right, so
All
Sue,
set?
I keep trying to come to you for this.
I'm done, Sue.
For the special ed budget projections. Oh, my, okay.
John, you want to hit maybe one light? Would you mind? So I can see it? Thanks. So I brought this to Financial Committee last Tuesday, I think now. So it's been several days, and there's already been some potential change in special ed for next year on projections on tuitions, which are a pretty frequent occurrence in special education. But I'll stick with this for now. We are able at this point to reduce one special education teacher at LHS due to enrollment. And I'll leave it at that because I don't want to get too identifying. So there's a savings there unless we get new enrollments. So keep that in mind. We are having some meetings coming up with some students who are out of district in a program that we can manage in-house. If we brought them back to school here in Longmeadow, we would have to hire what we call a basic skills specialist to do some specialty work with them. So we'd get about $72,000 back, but we'd have to then spend about $35,000. So I think I said the colored blocks are contingent upon each other. They're like if-then situations. All right, so we're not sure about that. We won't know about that until the end of May for sure. I met with the supervisors, and we feel that overall we'll be able to reduce one paraprofessional. Keep in mind that's with no new enrollments or new discoveries, or so that we're pretty confident in that number. The big area is a reduction in contracted service from a great consulting firm, a speech consulting firm, TDS, and they've done great things with us, but we have hired kind of piecemeal for them, and if we cut their contract down substantially and hired a 1.0 speech language pathologist in-house for about $60,000, we could recognize the savings there of about $40,000. So again, one is contingent upon the other. And I'd like permission to go ahead and post at least anticipated funding to see what we can get, because again, it's getting towards the end of the school year and I want to be able to find good folks. Out-of-district placements, we have some new ones coming up and we have some students coming back that, and some students changing actually. So there's been a few new developments in the past couple of days or between Friday and Monday that I've heard about. So I have a number of 105 that we didn't plan for. I think that number is potentially higher, but I also think that we may have some students move placements that I didn't know of last week, which is really typical in special education. It happens all the time. And then another additional reduction in one of our consulting firms' lines for a BCBA, and we have in-house BCBA, but this is reduction because the BCBA who is consulting for us actually wrote herself out of a job. The students are not in need of those services anymore. So that's that. So at the end of the day, if all the chips fall in the right places, we're about $50,000 potential to the good in pupil services. And we, I know it took a while, but we went through every line, every, organ object. We went through everything to see if we had good money, if the money was encumbered correctly, if we were going to spend it, if we were going to need more. And we found places that we needed more and some that we could let go, but no giant chunks like I was hoping for. So, yeah.
Any questions for Sue?
So you said out-of-district placements could be higher?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
what did you say after that?
But I also have heard of a couple of students who may potentially come back or change placements to a placement.
So that would be like a return of district students, so it would be a
Yes, the offset. Yep. And that happens throughout the year, Kim, with special ed tuitions. I know you know. I know you know.
I know, which is why I'm so nervous to even just take anything out of your budget.
Well, I think that really comes down at the end of the day to the teacher and the speech pathologist.
This is really, the goal would be to make it through next year without using school choice and instead lower the budget by 50 grand. If it doesn't happen, then it comes out of school choice, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's not something we can vote on this second.
Well, that's a good question. So if we lowered from 53 and we took it out of special education instead of school choice, where we took it out of that last 50,000 last, what happens at the end of FY17 if we now all of a sudden have a few extra out-of-district placements that now we're 60 or 70,000 in the hole in that category? What happens?
A lot of that would depend on where they're initially funded from.
Right.
We would look at the total budget similar to this year. If you look at our pupil service projection, which Finance will be getting an updated one later this week, either we would have to cover it with overages or available funds from another line within the budget, or go to school choice.
We haven't had to go to choice.
We have not had to go to
Right.
school choice.
Right.
But similar to this year's projection, we do have deficits within pupil services, but are being covered from funds from other lines within the budget. So if that is not available, then we would have to go to school choice to cover a shortfall.
But you're not looking for a vote tonight, is the bottom line, though.
Just let you know what's there, right?
But she wants us to be okay, let her know that she can hire.
Yeah,
Post for the-
I do. Run a post for the speech path and get that person hired.
Yeah, I mean, that's a savings if it happens, regardless of what happens with the rest of
Yep.
it. So it's-
Yep.
So I'll make a motion to
Okay.
hire, or allow you to hire, post.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Great, thank you. Get on that.
All right, so Marie, you wanted to update us with your goals for the year in light of your evaluation coming up?
All right. I'll move out of the way so you can see.
Your packet contains printouts of the PowerPoint. That's easier for you to follow.
I'm dying by the time I'm done.
Marie just discovered that she's profusely allergic to cats,
I'm allergic
and
to
Diane
cats, and I'm over here
apparently
saying, what
is
is it?
covered in dander.
Probably me. She's allergic to me. Professional practice. One of the goals this year was after-school planning time for the elementary schools. So this is continuing what we talked about in January. Again, met with the principals, we've reviewed plans and discussed agendas. We've aligned the work with the district goals, in particular math. And all the topics that were discussed are included down below. We've done everything from BAS and MCAS down to professional sharing, where teachers have done presentations and principals have done presentations on curriculum, et cetera. Do you want me to read those to you, or? No, okay. I think you're good on that, all right. But overall, I will say that the meetings have been very, very successful. It's been time that's been well utilized. I think in particular, it's funny when we try and do something on a Wednesday, the staff is clear to let us know that that is their time. They really enjoy working together and collaborating. The principals have enjoyed having Mondays, that extra time to pursue topics that they normally don't get to. The second area is student learning, and the goal was to increase student learning. So again, we used the after-school meetings to look at student achievement. We looked at BAS, MCAS data. We looked at specific questions on the test to see where students struggled and where they needed work. We looked at literacy, math, etc. The Ames Web has been administered. Last year's data was used for fall student planning. Fall testing was used for student placement for targeted instruction. They review those and they put them in 6 weeks increments, and then review again to see who can be graduated out, who needs to be added, and who needs to maintain that support. Administrative discussions were held on testing and student achievement. The WIN block was successfully implemented, where we again give targeted instruction, challenge work, or just support for what's going on in the classes. The June reports, the principals will come and report to you and will indicate the success of testing, curriculum alignment, and WIN.
So how are we going to evaluate that one?
We look at the improvement.
evaluations in by May, whatever, 18, I think.
We don't have student testing till June, so there's nothing, because there are timeframes given by the BAS that you have to, the BAS and the Ames Web. There's a time frame where you have to administer it in order to make it valid, so that we're locked into those dates.
Yeah, I mean, there's just not a way to, for us to really evaluate that one, but.
It's very hard to do, I know. It would be great if we could have had that data before you did my evaluation.
Okay.
The homework guidelines, as you know, is a work in progress. It was 2 years to come up with the draft that we finally decided was the guideline. We did send that through committees. We had it go through the staff. We sent it out for parent feedback. We brought it to school committee. It's been implemented this year, and it's now under review again. Michael and I did meet last week to update the survey based on the recommendations made by school committee. The administrative team has looked at the survey and given feedback as well. So this goes through the steps that we took. I will be meeting with parents from Williams, at which point we're going to be discussing BYOD, and I'll ask about homework at that time. The survey should be very informative and let us know what people are thinking. Bring your own device. We developed the student user agreement. We have a question and answer sheet that's online. We have a video that parents have reviewed. I've met with the principals several times. The principals have met with teams of teachers. We've put together a Williams advisory group, a Glenbrook advisory group. The two groups met together before we put this plan into place. So then in January, everybody felt we were ready to roll it out. The staff feel like it's going well. Clearly, the parents have some concerns, so I'm looking into those. I think the meeting is next week with the Glenbrook PTO, so I'll be going to that meeting. I mean, Williams PTO.
Those were the letters we got, correspondence?
Yes, yes. We put a security plan in place. All the students were given locks for the first time so that they were able to lock their devices should they bring one. Again, we'll be doing a survey to gather feedback from the parents and staff on BYOD, and we'll use this data to make decisions and recommendations for next year's program. I will be talking to Marty because based on the data that we received from the survey, we'll make determinations about whether kids should be bringing their own device, whether we want to encourage the district to buy more Chromebooks and things like that. So we'll have more information for you when we get that survey back. The third area recommended by the DESE is the district improvement. And we explored an elementary health curriculum. I formed a committee and chaired it. We reviewed what was happening in other districts. We surveyed parents and teachers. It was, we highlighted key areas. It was definitely recommended that parents felt and staff felt that there should be a grade 4 and grade 5 curriculum. We tried to bring it forward, but the budget couldn't sustain it. I do encourage you to look at that for future years. We're again looking at the opioid and the heroin epidemic, which seems to be getting worse by the day. And we're hearing now that it's filtering down into the middle schools, so it would be really good if we could start a health curriculum in 5th grade so that we're making students more aware of that before they reach critical ages. And we did develop a possible schedule for implementation. We implemented new technology curriculum. One of the goals was to take a look at the elementary technology because as we've gotten technology, their skills have gotten better and better, and the curriculum was behind what was actually happening in classes. So the curriculum was done K through 8. It was implemented this year. We met with the teachers in January. They said that it's going very, very well, and the new curriculum is right on target. We're updating the technology plan. Nick George, the director of technology, has a committee. They are putting out a survey right now. The survey has been reviewed by all of us, and I think it's in process right now of being sent out. And they will take that survey to determine what the next steps are for the technology plan. But that will be done by the end of the year as well. And then increased communication. District newsletters went out in October and February. I'll send out a final one in June. The Special Programs Committee is met monthly. We hosted 3 parent speakers, and we have 3 sensational speakers for next year. We have it on Anthony Rao on boys. We have a speaker on girls who's well-renowned, and who's our third one? I forget right now. I can't remember right now. The special education pack was also revived and serves as an excellent conduit for communication between the schools and our special education community. So do you have any questions?
Can't wait to evaluate you.
I can't wait.
I know, it's the dumbest thing.
Do we have to?
But if you get a good evaluation, you get a gold watch, right?
I'll just take it and try to get the bobblehead.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Marie. And as a reminder, the evaluations are due to Diane by what date, Diane?
The 18th.
By the 18th.
Just so you know, I was working on doing a Google Doc to try to get it up on a Google Doc so that you could fill out a form. But we're not there, so it's probably not going to happen but next year I want.
But since they are Word docs.
Yeah, but it was, we're trying to transform it into a form which will populate into an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, and all I did with the Word doc is copy and paste from Desi's form.
I think it would be like 4 days of me working on it.
Right.
Right. So I don't have the time.
Could you send us a reminder, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Executive session?
Yes, we do have executive sessions scheduled.
All right, I move on the school committee adjourn into executive session to comply with or act under the authority of general or special law. General law, Chapter 30A, Section 22G, considering the release of executive session minutes from a previous meeting and to discuss strategy as it relates to possible litigation and strategy as it relates to contract negotiations with the Director of Pupil Services not to reconvene into open session. This motion requires a roll call vote.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Aye.
John Fitzgerald, aye.
Michael Clark, aye.
Janet Robinson, aye.
Kim Keane, aye. Michelle Grodzki, aye.
Russell Dupre, aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. As a reminder, town meeting is tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Thank you and have a good night.